What's up, guys? Not the final score. Not on the fly. It's Triple Threat Main Event Episode 1. Guys, welcome to the show.
I like that.
Just to get a little background, we talk about wrestling a lot on the fly, and you see it a lot in the groups. So we got to talking, and we got our main man up here, the man from down under, the hitman on the football field. He's not Bret Hart, but he's a little bit Bret. He doesn't have that bitter attitude like Bret Hart.
Freaking Goldberg right there, man.
Yeah, he ain't got a Goldberg.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, I hate Goldberg. He's the worst wrestler ever. He put me out of wrestling.
No, I'm talking about Jack's as tough as Goldberg, man. Jeez.
Now, let's introduce him. He's been on the fly before. We did a wrestling show. What was it, tag teams?
Top 10 tag teams.
Yep. Okay, top 10.
That was like a 4-hour episode, I think.
Yeah.
It's been a while back, but yeah, we did. But yeah, with us and as part of the Triple Threat Main Event, he's going to be one of the co-hosts of the show, is none other than, like I said, the Australian hitman, Jack Pennachio. What's up, buddy?
Stevie, Jace, how you guys doing?
Minus the theme music. Every time I hear that name, I hear
Although I think I may need a theme music for this. As a kid, I always liked the song by POD, Alive. I always made that my theme song. Don't know why, but we can go with that.
That's another show for another time here on top wrestling.
Favorite theme songs?
Yeah.
Entrance music and all that stuff. We'll talk about that and what would be our entrance music if we were. So yeah,
Stevie's would be "It's Raining Men." Spoiler alert,
So. You wish. Anyway, we wanted to do a show. We didn't want to, on the fly, more music, entertainment, stuff like that. So we decided we would do a little side cast, and my dog is making an appearance in the background. A little side cast, and me and Jack were talking. Jack came up with the name, which I think was good. We were actually going to use another name, but somebody else had already used it, which I think was a better name. Jack, you want to tell them what that name was?
I always wanted to call a wrestling podcast Scheduled for One Fall and have just, I don't know, it was just such a great name. Then at the end, you could say, and that was Scheduled for One Fall. And then,
oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
And have like Howard Finkel's voice at WrestleMania start the show. I had to, but yeah.
Finkel. What about
there's only 3 million podcasts out there, so
exactly
somebody grabbed it.
Yeah, what's the chance? But somebody had done, but they hadn't done an episode in like 3 years, but we didn't want to take a chance. So I don't think anybody's got Triple Threat Main Event out there. But yeah, we all three of us.
That could be a porn podcast, but we won't go there. So.
I did say we could use the Saturday Night Main Event theme song. That is kind of in the same genre.
What we need to do though, you remember on Saturday Night's Main Event before it started, right when it came on, you had the little underlying music and everybody was doing their little promos. Each week, all three of us need to do a little promo about what's
Animotion or whatever.
Yeah. No, but you know how they had the little background music playing while the guys were doing the promos they would get ready to wrestle. They would cut promos on each other and then head into that. But we've got a first comment up here in his Facebook user. He's probably good. He's not. He hasn't revealed who he is. Porn is good. So
that's actually one of my burner accounts. Sonny Perniguez is. That's one of mine.
I don't know who you are. If you want to identify who you are, come on out and identify.
Just being honest. I mean, there's two types of guys in the world: men who watch porn and people who lie, and men who lie about it. So
yeah, you're right. Okay, I don't know what that was about. This guy, Northeast, Corbin Byram, Northeast. Okay. Evidently, he's a fan of where I coach, or he doesn't like where I coach. Jim Britt. Oh, okay. I know who he is. Jim Britt. How you doing, buddy? He's from Greenville, North Carolina. So what we're going to do tonight, our leadoff episode, we're going to do our top 5, who we believe are top 5 wrestlers that never won a world heavyweight championship.
Now, this is our list. This doesn't mean we think that,
Yes.
Yeah, this is
this is our
not vibe to us.
have your list. Yeah, you know, hey Jim, it was ECU game was kind of tough, right? I just got through watching the ECU football game, and that's
Because this list could have easily been 10 to 15, easy.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you have to, you know, Jack is a little bit younger than us, than me and Worden.
Little bit, 20 years.
How old are
about
you, Jack? How old are you?
34.
So,
I'm
yeah.
feeling 54 today after football. My body doesn't recover as much as it does.
So 16-year difference between
Yep.
me and I don't know about Ward. Ward's a little bit older than me.
I'm a
Which is
1-year-old.
good. Great variations of
So
wrestling
Jack,
knowledge.
we actually were talking back and forth all week about the list, and Jack is not familiar with like some of the territories that went away back in the day, like the AWA of Minneapolis.
I think my grandfather talked about that. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Vern Gagne's AWA wrestling, which produced a lot of Freight Train Jones. Everyone, I am not sure. You remember Freight Train Jones, Worden?
I remember Special Delivery Jones.
Was that Rufus R?
That was the one that did he lose like in like 5 seconds to King Kong Bundy at Mania?
Yeah, but this is a different.
Okay, another guy. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is Rufus R. Jones. They called him Freight Train. I don't think he ever won a. Yeah, Rufus R. Jones was like in the. I don't think he ever won a major belt.
Is there a rooster crowing in the background?
That would be mine.
I was about to say that can't be me or Stevie. That rooster's got some time issues.
Mid-Atlantic, yeah, he was in Mid-Atlantic, but I don't think he ever won a major title like we're talking about. We're talking about a World Heavyweight Championship.
The top title of that company.
On that company, yeah. And so Rufus R., I think he may have won like a regional title, but I don't think he ever won anything like a world title or anything like that.
Yeah, there were a couple that I had to like really research.
Yeah.
One I found, I thought he had won one, but then I was like, okay, no, he didn't. So that one ended up on my list. So I was
and you know, you got some guys. Wahoo never won a World Heavyweight Championship. Wahoo won.
Yeah,
and honestly, you could almost make a case for Dusty because he only held the title for like 5 days each time he won it, dude. He didn't hold it very long at all. In
3 reigns, I think Dusty held it less than a month.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
But yeah,
he was always the booker. That's why. So
yeah.
Wahoo, I think, won every championship that the NWA had back then except the World Championship. I'm not sure about the TV title. He won the tag titles. He won the U.S. title.
The national title, right?
National title, because he unified that, him and Nikita.
With the American, right?
But see, what Jim says, Ricky won the big gold. That doesn't count.
Ricky beat Flair.
Steamboat? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Flair in 89.
But he never won a WWF title, but he still won the big gold in that promotion. That's where what we're doing.
And it's funny. I did my research on this, and they listed some wrestlers on there. Oh, they never won a title, and it's like a world title. And I'm like, yeah, they did. It just wasn't a WWF title.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you have to be kind of careful and read between the lines.
There was. I've got a lot of honorable mentions here.
Oh, I got more honorable mentions than
it's a lot of.
I think we need to save some of the honorable mentions for another podcast because this is a good subject. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a good talking one. Good talking point podcast episode.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do first, before we go any further on Triple Threat Main Event, is each one of us we're going to talk about when and how we got into wrestling and what because we're all from 3 different parts of the world. I mean,
honestly, probably 3 different countries. You think about it.
It's almost.
Oh, here we go.
Pretty much.
Yeah, Nature Boy was Mid-Atlantic back in the day. Actually, if you want to see some good stuff, go look up on YouTube. Go look up like Mid-Atlantic Wrestling from 1977 or 78 and see if you can find some Flair and Greg Valentine teaming up when they were the world tag team champions. They were, or Flair with a big feud with Blackjack. That
Flair was a lot different wrestler before the plane crash and after, because he had to almost get in shape for that plane crash.
Oh yeah.
And he admits it. He wanted to be Dusty Rhodes Jr. He wanted to be another Dusty Rhodes.
Oh yeah. He wanted to call himself Ricky Rhodes.
Yeah, Ricky Rhodes.
Yeah. He wanted to call himself Ricky Rhodes one time. He loved.
Speaking of Flair, wasn't that cool to see him show up in TNA? I hope to God he doesn't wrestle.
Yeah, AEW.
AEW.
Oh, yeah, AEW. That's right. Duh, TNA.
All those other letters.
TNA is actually going back to its roots and going to call itself TNA again instead of calling itself Impact.
Yep.
I saw
And
that.
apparently they're going to keep the 4-sided ring this time. They're not bringing back the 6, which is great.
Yeah, that was always
That was terrible, man.
Well, all that was
being
trying to
different.
be different to get some attention. Yeah, Blackjack Jim was awesome back in the day. That was a big
Blackjack Lorenza and what's his name's dad, Barry Windham's dad,
Blackjack Mulligan.
Mulligan. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The thing about I was watching WWE. I was watching WWE, and they have the new, I guess, SmackDown manager. And I kept looking like, I know this guy from somewhere. It's Magnus, Mickey James' husband from TNA.
Yeah,
the dude was great in TNA 10 years ago, back when TNA was good with Bully Ray. But I was like, who is this guy?
I actually went to we'll save this for another time to talk more about it. I actually went to a TNA pay-per-view, Destination X, and I forget the year, but I mean, we were sitting so close to some of them. It was a lot of guys that we'll have to talk about it.
TNA had a good run when they had Bully Ray and the Hogan thing. That was, I mean, of course, Hogan Bischoff ruined everything, but I mean,
TNA was getting almost 1.2 to 1.5 million viewers a week.
Yeah,
that was great.
AJ Styles and all that was good.
You guys ever listen to? We'll talk about podcasts too that we listen to as well. But My World with Jeff Jarrett, he'll do a TNA. He'll do an episode where he talks about TNA. And the last one I listened to, he was talking about one of the pay-per-views there and how Dixie Carter's family, the Panda Company, I think that's what they called them.
Yeah.
How her dad handled paying for all the wrestlers. He was more. Jarrett was saying he was more about going to like down the road to get his hair cut, something like. You see, I got Hulk Hogan. You see, I got the. He called it the Sting. You see, I got the Sting and all this stuff. He didn't know jack about wrestling. He was just.
Sounds like Ted Turner.
Friend, like collecting them. But so we'll start with Jack.
Yep.
How old were you and how did you get into wrestling?
So I was probably maybe 10 when I started getting into wrestling through video games, videos back then. Then we just at school, we all just started talking about it. We were able to get SmackDown and Raw on our cable box. So I used to record it, take it to school, hand it around. And then from there, the magazines. It was just on the verge of when WCW was going out of business when I saw it on TV. It used to be on Australian TV back in the day, but obviously they stopped. And then from there, like I said, the magazines, the video games, you just get more and more into it. And then from there, it's just, I don't know. It's just one of those things that you watch it. We all know it's scripted, but so is TV and movies.
Some of us didn't back in the day.
But I don't know. It's just one of those things that you watch it and you know what's going to happen, but at the same time, like you don't. So you watch. And you always have someone you hate, someone you love. So it's just one of the things, man. I just love it. I love watching it.
I'll tell you this, Jack, but back in the day when we watched it, we didn't, I mean, especially, I don't know about you, Worden, but as a kid, we didn't know if it was real or not. They played it.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a little thing, because if you mention that word, because there's a guy that works with me that used to be a wrestler. He wrestled back when it was WWWF back in the day.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there eating lunch one day, and I threw it at him. I said, "Hey, what do you know about kayfabe?" And he stopped what he was eating. He stopped like this, and he looked at me like, "What?" And I said, "Kayfabe." And he looked at me for like, I mean, he just stared at me for like 10 or 15
You're gonna be like Dr. D and John Stossel.
I thought I was going to get smacked in the ears again. But, yeah, he said, how do you know that word? And I said, man, you had kept up with wrestling a lot because it's
Hell, McMahon came out and admitted it.
Yeah, that's how it came out. But
but that made it believable back then. Heels and faces had to drive and stay somewhere else.
Didn't get seen together, dude. One of the biggest things that happened back when we were kids, Worden, I don't know if you remember it or not. Hacksaw Jim Duggan had just come to the WWF, and he was getting. I mean, he was doing the whole. He would carry the 2x4. He had the American flag out there. And he started this big feud with the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. Okay. Well, right in the middle of that feud, guess who gets stopped by the cops? The Iron Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan riding in the same vehicle get stopped, drug charges. So, and I really don't think McMahon was as upset about the drug charges as he was them being together. The heel and the babyface that were supposed to hate each other being in the same vehicle, and they couldn't cover it up. But yeah, back in the day, like the locker rooms, one of the things when I went to my first event, we went to the Dorton Arena in Raleigh, and you saw heels in one locker room, baby faces in the other. They didn't get anywhere near each other.
Well, that's the plane crash I was talking about with Ric Flair. They were I think it was on the Ric Flair documentary. They were talking about how they had to keep that crypt quiet. And I think Mr. Wrestling, one of the Mr. Wrestling 1 or 2, he had to like wrestle, even though he like really messed his back up. Well, and because they had to like make it believable back then.
One of the things too was when, Flair was in this big feud with Wahoo. But they really thought a lot of each other. Wahoo came to the hospital, tried to sneak into the hospital to see him. The nurses called security, called the cops on him because they thought he was coming up there to kill Flair.
Yeah.
They got him away from him.
Anyway. I remember when Mike Von Erich, one of the Von Erich brothers, they found him dead.
Yeah.
He had a toxic shock. He had an arm operation or something. And he got toxic shock, which, and he just was never the same. And they found him dead. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I wonder if like Gino and Chris Adams got to him. I mean,
wow.
I was so into it, bro. I was like, those son of bitches don't like each other, and I wonder who offed him.
Yeah. But so tell us a little bit about when and how you got into it, Worden.
Well, I kind of just gave it away right there. I'm from Texas. So in the 80s, there was nothing bigger down here than the Von Erichs. And I remember my buddy, I knew who Hulk Hogan, I remember seeing Rocky 3 and I knew who Hulk Hogan was. And I had always heard it was fake. I had an uncle that was supposedly a wrestler and my dad always told me, yeah, the boxers used to say like those wrestlers go in there and they'd practice their moves and everything. And I was never into it until one of my buddies, it's like, oh, this is Kerry. He's my favorite. And, and his brother Kevin. And I think this is around the time. Yeah, this is right before David died. And I remember them talking about the Von Erichs. And I remember getting into the wrestling stuff and it was Chris Adams and Gino Hernandez. Well, I automatically liked the heels. I just thought Gino Hernandez was another guy that just so much could have been. Chris Adams, I remember going to a barber in the 80s, taking a picture of him saying, I want this hair.
Wow.
It was a mullet. Chris Adams was one of my favorite wrestlers. And then, of course, Kevin was my favorite of the Von Erichs. But I remember they were doing something. I think it's right before Ric Flair came down there. And one thing about Ric Flair, he was a champion that was always there. He wasn't like Hogan. He'd show up once a month, Yeah. Flair went to the territories. He was the world champion. That's why I still think he's the greatest of all time. And I remember asking my buddy, well, who's that dude? He says, oh, that guy's the F word. I won't say it. I don't want to be politically correct. And I'm like, really? He's got like these hot chicks with him and he looks really cool. And just him talking. And I was like, who is this dude? And so I started following Flair and the NWA, eventually Mid-South. because Flair was there too. And then the World Class, they had an argument with NWA, and they eventually dropped off. Well, that was a death knell for World Class for me, and I think a lot of other people. I started watching the NWA because NWA was better. Then I started watching the WWF. The WWF never really seemed real to me. NWA was like, it seemed more realistic.
Yeah.
I was never into like Ultimate Warrior and all that stuff because I just was never. But of course, you know, some of them like Savage, I loved because he was a bad guy. And, you know, of course, Tito Santana, I liked him because he was from the town I lived in Mission, Texas. But I mean, NWA was it for me. And that's just, I mean, when I got into the Horsemen and Flair, and it was 2 hours. It was 2 hours on Saturday night in that. But actually, my grandmother lived in Dallas at the time. And and I would go up there on the weekends because the Von Erichs had their own 2-hour show on Saturday nights. My mom worked for Southwest, so I could fly for free. I'd go up there like, oh, I'm going to go watch, 2 hours of wrestling. And you see all this crap you wouldn't see on like World Class. And just, just that, and that I still got that thing in my hand, that dun, 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 that intro, that World Class. And I remember down here getting so pissed off is because Tejano's pretty big down here. So they would do that, and they would have Tejano instead of wrestling. I was like, what the hell? And, it would over thing. And then I had to go to church, and I was missing wrestling. So, and all the Von Erichs are dead now, so I miss out on a lot. So I'm really sad. But it was the Von Erichs, Ric Flair, and then up till today.
Yeah. For me, there are three things that I became big fans of as a kid: Kiss, the Steelers, and professional wrestling. And
well, two out of three ain't bad.
Yeah. I know that. See the hat. But my cousin was responsible for 2 out of the 3. He was responsible for the Kiss and the wrestling because comes over. He had a younger brother that was more my age, but he would always he started messing with us, saying like, "Oh, y'all can't stay up late enough to watch the wrestling." He was talking about Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, the Rock and Roll Express. And I was like, "Who are they talking about?" And finally one night, we had 3 channels here, and I could get most of the Crockett shows. Like they had a Crockett show that came on. It was Worldwide Wrestling came on at noon, and then at 11:30 on Saturday nights, the NWA Pro Wrestling came on.
Talking about TBS?
I didn't have TBS. I didn't have cable.
Oh.
So I got to watch that. I stayed up, and then every once in a while, on NBC with that, they would have Saturday night's main event. So it's probably late '85 when I became a fan, and it was like, let's go. And I was hooked, and I was getting the magazines every month because you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have streaming, you couldn't watch. I would have loved as a kid, and I'm sure you would have too, Worden, to have this kind of technology so we could have watched like World Class. I mean, I could have watched World Class. I could have watched AWA, stuff like that.
I don't know. There was something about it that it just seems like now it's just everything's it's not as, I don't know. It's kind of like record stores, and like you go and buy an import. You go to a record store, like, what the hell is this? It's an import, a live album or something. I mean, we had to literally search for wrestling. Those wrestling magazines you talk about, they're only 3 months freaking old.
Oh, I know. You were way behind.
And I would get so pissed off that they wouldn't talk about the results for WrestleMania. On well, Hulk Hogan beat Andre the Giant. You didn't have that crap. You had to wait a whole freaking week a lot of times.
Yeah.
I remember talking about, I didn't have cable either. And I would come up to see my mom, and she lived in an apartment at the time. And that's back when apartments had free cable. There was such a thing, Jack, at one time. Apartments just to give you free cable. And they had TBS, and shit, I was having a wet dream with wrestling. No offense, not the gay thing, but I was excited, man. It's like, God, there's 2 hours here, 1 hour here. I mean, all this crap we didn't see. And I remember one time my mom came down to see me. We're at the hotel, and I was going through the channels, and it was like WCW Saturday night or NWA Saturday night, whatever it was called, and it had the WWF on it, and I'm like,
Black Saturday.
And I was like, God, this is horrible. I mean, it's the NWA. You had the Rock and Roll Express. You had a lot of you had a bunch of jobbers with the WWF. In the NWA, you always had like a jobber that you think had a chance to win. Hell, the Mulkey Brothers won a match one time.
Mulkey Brothers.
And it's like, yeah, and it's like, it's just like, it was like, God, this is horrible. And I think that's why I was still, until like, the late 80s, early 90s when WCW started when they brought Hogan and all that stuff before the NWO, that I was kind of checked out on it because they dishonored Flair. They just make him lose like that. I just hated that. I hated seeing Flair like that. He should have stayed in WWF. But it's like, God, the NWA back in the 80s, nobody could top it, in my opinion. I don't know if you feel the same, Stevie.
Jim Britt, I had the Norfolk station too, because the Norfolk stations in Virginia is what I watched the Worldwide at noon on. I would get out.
That was syndicated. I watched that too.
Yeah, I would get out with the pipe wrench at the antenna and turn it till I could hear it. Open the window and turn it till I could hear it. But okay, so most of the time it came in and I was pretty lucky. But I did have good friends that would, like, if it was a Clash of the Champions, they'd record it, yeah, and give it to me. But I was okay with WWF. Right. But I thought everybody kept talking about Hogan. I was like, Flair is 20 times better than Hogan.
Oh yeah,
and even at an early age, but
Hogan will admit that too. Hogan will say it.
Yeah, he'll tell you that. I will tell you this: I could get my grandma came to live with us after she had a stroke, but it wasn't bad enough where she could talk and everything like that like she usually did. But she was having a hard time, and I would come in there and say, Grandma, you mind if I put some wrestling on in here? And she was like, oh, you can watch whatever you want to. And that woman would forget for however long I was in there. She would forget that she was hurting or anything like that.
That's
and
awesome.
I would not. I'm not lying. There's only 2 times I heard my grandma cuss. One was at Ric Flair, you little son of a. And then when she would watch her soap opera, she would call Nikki Newman one too. But
Nikki Newman, Young and the Restless shout out. Ooh.
She loved her Young and the Restless. She would watch Young and the Restless 3 times a day.
I still watch it.
They're still going.
I still watch. I watch General Hospital, Young and the Restless, and I ain't afraid to admit it. Like, you watch soap operas? Well, hell, I like pro wrestling. That's what a male soap opera is.
Look,
Yep.
I had no choice but to watch soap operas. When my grandma kept me for 12:30, she'd have your lunch fix and all that. She said, "Don't bother me after 12:30." So
back to my stories.
That was back when they had like soap operas on every channel, all in the afternoon. But,
I remember watching As the World Turns with my babysitter.
Yeah.
She made potty meat sandwiches, and she'd smoke her cigarettes, man. Good times, bro.
Yeah, but that was how I got into wrestling, and still, maybe I'm trying to see if I ever checked out big time with it. I didn't. I didn't really check out all the way. Back in the early 90s, like 93, 94, I didn't pay as much attention to it as I had. But then when the whole WCW versus WWF started, I got really back into it then.
I think a lot of us did, because I remember when Hogan was like there, when he was still the good guy and he was doing the Baywatch stuff, and I was like,
yeah.
God. And then the WWE, I mean, when Ultimate Warrior took over, I was like, I checked out, and I think I went with a buddy of mine in high school. We went to actually wrestling, my first wrestling, and that's when we saw, and I got kind of back into it. But that's when Haku and Tito Santana were beating the hell out of each other, and then people were like, "Hey, those they left together." Like, hey. I mean, it's like, and I just remember being at my first wrestling match and just thinking, it just wasn't the same. You didn't have, the commentary going on. It's like, you actually had to pay attention. But it was like the Slaughter, when Slaughter turned heel, and I just wasn't into it.
That was an odd heel turn. It made no sense to me.
Yeah. I tell you what, though, it got
a lot of heat.
It did.
Major heat. Almost to the fact where he was getting death threats.
Yeah, he was. I think I read somewhere he actually had like FBI at his house,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
just around his house.
I didn't buy it. I just didn't buy it. I knew it was an angle.
We
it
were
was
at
hard.
an age, we were
It
at
was
an age
hard.
where we didn't buy that.
It was hard for me to believe as an old school fan. Here I am, and like there's a magazine called Wrestling 85, and it had this like article on him about how much he loved America and all this crap. And it was like it just wasn't believable for me. And it's like he was against anybody was against the Warrior. I mean, it's like I couldn't get behind the Warrior, and I couldn't. I mean, I was finally glad Hogan lost, but I wanted that for so long. But it was the Ultimate Warrior, and I was like, Hogan deserved better than that. The Warrior was that's when I really started checking out. The dude had great hair, though. I give him that. Dude has some badass hair. And you see that one? I think somebody put it on TikTok or whatever. But I guess it's a Phil Collins video that I had never seen this.
Oh, yeah.
And he's dancing with the Ultimate Warrior. It's like, that's another thing the Warrior can't do is dance.
That was a odd couple there for sure. Phil Collins and the Ultimate Warrior. I don't remember that back then. That was the first time
I don't either.
So, all right. So tonight, like we said, our top five wrestlers that never won a world heavyweight singles championship. Now, some of my guys definitely won tag belts, world tag belts. As a matter of fact, probably 1, 2, 3, 4 won world tag team belts. But we're talking about singles. So, and of course, I've got a tie at number 5. So I'll go ahead and tell you that.
I got a tie at number 5 as 2. But I'm going to have to ask you guys' opinion because I'm not sure about some, but we'll get to that.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, if they won a title, but not the title, that's still
all right.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if this guy won the title. One of them, I had to ask y'all, so we'll get to that when I get
Yeah. I'm probably the same because, like I said, we'll go through it. It's a great talking point.
The other four I'm sure about, but my 5, I got 2 like Stevie, and one of them I'm not sure about.
Yep.
All right. Since Jack is the new guy.
Younger and more.
I think I went first last time on the tag team.
Okay. Well,
so
Stevie, you never go first. Why don't you go first?
I'll go first this time. So my number 5 is a tie. And the first one I'm going to talk about, he's an underdog. He's one that you wouldn't think, but he's always, from the first time I saw him come in to the Crockett territory in '86. He was a young guy, good-looking guy, but man, he was smooth. The only thing that held this guy back from winning from making a big run, I don't ever think he even won like a mid-major championship, but man, was he talented. And the only thing that held him back was his ability to cut a promo or his work on the microphone. And came from a big wrestling family. And I'll just say, you didn't know. And that'll give away part of it right there. But it's not him. It's not the Road Dogg. It's his older brother, Brad Armstrong.
Brad Armstrong. Wow.
I didn't. He's gone. He's gone, right?
He passed away. Sleep apnea.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Because I remember him. He was a very sorry to interrupt you, Stevie.
You're fine.
He was what you call a jobber a lot of times, but he was a jobber that had a lot of potential.
Well, his dad was Bullet Bob Armstrong. They ran like a territory back in the day.
Road Dogg brother.
Road Dogg's his brother, and one of his other brothers was a member of the Southern Boys with Tracy Smothers back.
Scott.
Was it
That's
Scott?
right. I remember that.
Scott is the referee, right?
He's the referee.
But yeah, big time wrestling family. But Brad, when he came into Crockett, he was thrown in he came around the time Magnum TA had the wreck, and they had to redo Starrcade, and Brad got thrown into a match there at Starrcade with Jimmy Garvin. But this guy threw the best drop kick you'll ever see.
Yeah, he did. Very.
And I mean, really smooth, quick as lightning, undersized a little bit, but and he goes on years later. Him and Brian Pillman had a big feud for the cruiserweight championship in WCW, and I think he actually won the cruiserweight belt once. Had a tag team with Tim Horner called the Lightning Express.
Oh, Tim Horner, God, I remember that.
Yeah,
Wow.
in the UWF. But yeah, he's
always somebody that I thought that maybe 10 years older, 10 years, maybe the 70s, late 70s would have been a bigger star, because you had a lot of the young in the late 80s. All these guys were huge, getting huge.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was just
he was probably just a decade too late.
Yeah, or too
I see that. But I liked him too. He started out kind of hot, and then he kind of started jobbing at there at the end. I think in the WWF he was a jobber.
And see, they tried everything to give him a gimmick.
Yeah.
Mask. He was Arachnoman, which was
He was what?
You guys ever saw Arachnoman?
Arachnoman?
Yeah, WCW. They're great. They're great guys they had there that were doing the creative back then.
Dude had a hell of a mullet too, man. He had some good hair.
Yeah, they put him in a costume that almost looked exactly like Spider-Man, but it was yellow. And
Eric Carr? What?
No. Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics contacted him and said no, it's too close to that. Then
we don't want that ugly shit being associated with us. No.
But then, if you go back and watch Super Brawl 1, the match with the Freebirds and the Southern Boys, which his brother was one of the Southern Boys. At the start of the match, Oliver Humperdinck was managing the Freebirds. He kept interfering.
Oliver Humperdinck, wow.
Brad comes down to the ring, and both Brad and Humperdinck get told to go to the back. At the end of the match, a masked wrestler comes out called Bad Street and helps the Freebirds win. He's wearing
I wonder who that could be for helping.
The same boots that Brad wore earlier when he came.
Oh no.
So yeah, Brad was Bad Street, but man, he was.
Don't you look at Sir Oliver Humperdinck and you know that's how Sheamus is going to look in about 40 years?
Oh, good Lord. Sheamus is a little bit taller than Humperdinck was. But Brad Armstrong is my number 5. Then the other number 5 was a heel. I mean, this guy, after he came to WWF back in the mid 80s, late 80s.
Bastion Booger. I knew it.
Yeah, it was him. But there was no way he could work babyface after what he did. I'm talking about the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Now, technically, if you look at it, he was given a world championship.
Oh, he bought it.
He bought it, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't count that. I
was close. I will say I was close with that one.
Yeah, DiBiase was a heck of a wrestler. I mean, he was talented, and man, could he get heat. Because when he left,
all he was Ric Flair. I mean, that was Ric Flair's gimmick, just with the money.
We talked about Arachnoman, but you know how WCW tried to make the $1 Million Man with them, don't you?
No.
The tailor-made man, Terry Taylor.
Yeah. It's got to be better than the Red Rooster.
Well, yeah, that's true too. But
God, the worst gimmick of all time has got to be the Red Rooster.
I could, one of them. I could actually, from time to time, catch UWF on late Saturday nights. And right before DiBiase jumped to WWF, he was a babyface in UWF. Him and Dr. Death.
Hacksaw Duggan too. Him and Hacksaw.
Yeah, they were fighting the Freebirds. And so when he came to WWF, and I saw him, he didn't wrestle at first. Whenever they came to WWF first back then, it wasn't in the ring. They would do these vignettes, like the videos of them, like they were coming, and they would have DiBiase up there.
I used
to love that stuff. I used to love that stuff. But talking about money.
Speaking of that, you know who I didn't know for the longest time was who was that guy? Was it Dan Spivey? When he played that character that was like Robert De Niro's character in Waylon Mercy. Yeah. I didn't know for the longest time that was Dan Spivey.
Spivey, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was like, who is that? And crazy. Yeah, you'd see that. It's like, hey, that's so and so, and yeah.
Hold on a second. There's some.
Is that breaking news?
What?
Oh my gosh.
What?
Matthew Perry from Friends dead after drowning in his jacuzzi.
Wow.
Chandler Bing.
Sucks.
Wow.
Wow.
He was my favorite character on Friends.
Yeah.
I love Friends. I mean, you have a lot of millennials and younger generations. Oh, Friends is horrible. No, Friends was great, especially your Gen X. Wow, that sucks.
Damn, man.
And my daughter just texted me too.
Wow, that sucks.
Wow.
Breaking news.
He's about our age. He's about our age.
54.
Yeah, about our age.
Jim Britt just put it up here in the comments, and I was like, oh gosh, I hope that's not true. But apparently so. Apparently so. I hate to.
Wonder if he was. I mean, he always had the history of substance abuse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the first thing that popped in my head too.
Like Whitney Houston in the bathtub.
Yeah.
That sucks, man. I actually remember he had a book come out about a year ago, and he said something off key about Keanu Reeves, and everybody loves Keanu Reeves. And
Oh yeah.
I was kind of reading on it and stuff, and I was like, hey, man, I like to read his book, but God, that sucks, man. God, I go through TikTok, I watch old Friends crap, God. And who didn't love Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox and Lucy Kudrow?
Yeah.
That sucks, man. I really
Jim Britt says in other news, let's talk about the Disco Inferno.
No, that was my number 5. Damn it. He gave it away.
So DiBiase is my other number 5. So I think we'll just go down to Worden, the bad guy.
Okay, my number 5. You actually mentioned him a while ago, Stevie.
Uh-oh.
Somebody that I just what it could have been. One of my favorite wrestlers. And, he was in a car accident. Magnum TA. He was on the cusp. I think that you always kind of think about, well, if so-and-so would have done so-and-so. Maybe that Flair wouldn't have had as many title runs because he was the one they were pushing on there. And I just remember him being, that's when I really started kind of getting NWA and just being a big fan of his. But when I found out about the accident about that, I mean, it was like, of course, 3 months after it happened because, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, but there was no internet back then. But the guy who is my number 5 is the guy that stepped up with Dusty. And I always thought, did he win the NWA title or not? Magnum TA. Or not Magnum TA. Nikita Koloff. Did he not? Did he
never won it.
Okay. Nikita Koloff is another wrestler. Given that gimmick, of course, he probably couldn't take with him to WWF.
No.
That would have been a hell of a gimmick in WWF.
Yeah.
The dude was lean. He was muscular. Good looking dude. I mean, my God. And I know that he became, his spirituality, he followed all that stuff. But what a waste Magnum TA and Nikita Koloff were. Because it's just like Nikita Koloff, I mean, the NWA didn't use him right or he checked out. I don't know what happened with him. I kind of quit watching, after a while. I don't know what happened with Nikita Koloff. I know he got, religion because didn't his wife die or something like that?
Yeah, Nikita got married and his wife got really sick. So he took some time off. And when he came back, I don't know if you remember, Ward, when he came back, he had hair and he was a lot lighter.
Yeah.
He wasn't the intimidating Russian nightmare that you saw before.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. But he kind of lost his momentum after what happened to Magnum because they were in a big feud.
Well, and he didn't lose his momentum as much as he lost that. Everybody saw that killer instinct, the night. And Jack, you would probably, this would tell you how things were back then. And Jim, tell Christy I said hello. But when they did the whole babyface turn for Nikita, have you ever seen that?
I may have. I know those two together. Yeah.
The plan was, okay, Dusty was supposed to fight Ole Anderson, and J.J. Dillon in a cage. And it was supposed to be Magnum with him. I don't know why they thought that was fair with J.J. Dillon in there, but anyway.
Or JJ, the Road Warriors took him out.
But Nikita had been on a tour of Japan. And Nikita came back and they told him what was going on. So he comes to the arena. He actually, I want to say he wrestled that night. Or maybe I'm wrong. Whatever it was, he stayed away from everybody. Nobody knew except Dusty and Jim Crockett and Nikita that this was what's going to happen. So Dusty comes walking to the ring, and Nikita is behind him. And all these people are like going, look out, look out. They're yelling at, look out. And Dusty climbs in the ring, and you can see Ole and JJ going like, what's he doing here? And then Dusty gets in the ring, they jump him, and then Nikita joins in the fray. And then, I mean, that place went nuts. But, you know, Nikita kind of lost that undestroyable aura that he had when he went babyface. And, you know, he kept the U.S. belt for a while, and then he won the TV belt, but it was never like he had a big feud with Flair after that, but it was never the same Nikita that you saw before. And then when his wife died, and he took that time off and came back for a while, and then took some more time off and came back again, but it was never the same Nikita after that. But no, he never. You're right. That was a good one. Worden. He never won a world title. I had Nikita on. Did an interview with Nikita.
I remember that.
And funny story, Nikita auditioned for the role of the Russian in Rocky IV.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, I've heard
And
that.
they told him he was too big. He dwarfed Stallone too much. So he was evidently, Nikita's a lot bigger than Dolph Lundgren. So yeah, but I'll have to put the Nikita interview back up. So
I just like Nikita, man. I just loved his promos. You know, I beat all the Russians. I win the U.S. title. I mean, it was, and I remember that he had that big match with Ric Flair. I think it's at like one of the Great American Bashes.
Yeah.
And I remember them like really talking about it, and Ric Flair talking. Yeah, I have a lot of people sending me mail, not email back then, but sending me letters saying they're actually cheering for me the first time because I'm fighting the Russian.
Yep.
Flair, if you watch some of the stuff back then, Flair was like a tweener. That was, everybody talked about Stone Cold was the first tweener, but at that time, Flair hadn't gone heel, full-fledged heel, but he wasn't full-fledged babyface because he was having some issues with Magnum at the same time.
That's why they always had him to beat up Dusty, because Flair was getting cheered. So they would have to remind people every once in a while who Flair was.
Yeah. Whoever this is.
I liked him no matter what. Like when they'd attack Dusty Rhodes at the gas station, hey, go Horseman. And it's so funny, not to get off kind of there, but I was listening. I see Cody Rhodes and stuff, and I want to cheer for him. I have nothing against him.
I can't.
But he reminds me of his dad. He reminds me of his dad.
Yeah. I
just never was a fan. I read Dusty's book. I think it was great. I think he's a hell of a guy outside. He's from Texas. But I was never a fan. I was never a Dusty Rhodes fan.
I see Cody, and I can see what you can't say Vince now, but you can see what the WWE are doing to Cody, what they wanted to do with Dusty, and they're giving him the Dusty treatment still.
But they don't.
I feel
Dusty they screwed Dusty with that polka dot thing.
Yeah.
But I didn't see any difference back then because that's who Dusty was. It was such a. And I'm like, well, no, that's who he was in NWA. I mean, really, he had polka dots, but I don't think Dusty hated that as much as people say he did. I really don't.
He made it. He made it work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dusty definitely. I mean, he was determined he was going to make it work.
But Cody is somebody that he's like another John Cena. It's like he would be a heel. I wouldn't believe it. You know?
No, you can't.
Yeah. And I don't think he will. I mean,
Cody when he was for a long time in WWE.
Even if Cody brings in Brandy as an interference, it's kind of, you still can't believe it.
Yeah. Hell, Gold
And,
Dust almost made my list. I loved Gold Dust, man.
Ooh,
thought Gold Dust
we'll
was
keep that.
great.
We'll keep that one.
I thought Gold
Speaking-
Dust was great.
Speaking of Magnum TA, did you see the Dark Side of the Ring episode based on
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
He was the one where I think it was Rick that had to sneak into hospital to see him.
All the horsemen.
Yes,
all the
all of yeah.
You want to hear something really funny? Magnum is married to Tully Blanchard's ex-wife, and he's
Yeah.
Tessa's stepdaddy. So where is she at now? Do y'all remember Tessa Blanchard?
She has some issues like in the locker room, so that's why WWF never took a chance with her.
God, I can't believe Impact. You know, she was for a little while. She was with Impact. I can't believe evidently she's got a lot of issues for none of these three to be taking a chance with her. That would
She'll
be
probably go to
I
AEW.
always thought it would
Well,
be.
her dad was the same way.
Huh?
Her dad was the same way.
Yeah, well, he had some issues too. But
Most of us around San Antonio do.
Magnum is a condom? Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Stevie, it doesn't surprise me you didn't know that, Stevie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a good one. But yeah, it was who are we talking about then?
Tessa Blanchard.
Yeah, I always thought it'd be cool if she had came to WWE. Her and Charlotte would have teamed up and had they already had the 4 horsewomen, but Tessa could really be one. I mean, and Tessa's tough too. God, she is tough. All right,
That's probably why it didn't last either, because because you have these girls that are like divas and you have wrestlers, and she's a wrestler.
She's a wrestler. Yeah. All right, Pennachio, number 5.
So mine's number 5.
I can't wait to hear
is something. It is Disco Inferno. No, it's not. No. So my number 5, I'm gonna go wild with this one. It's actually a female. It's the only female on my list. Now, with this one, she's won the Divas Championship. It's not a world title. You can't call it that. She's won the SmackDown Women's title. You can't call that. That's
The Divas title isn't the world champ. I thought it was.
Not anymore.
No, because to me, you can't be the world's women's champion known as the Diva. You know what I mean? It's just, I think
disagree.
that's. You disagree?
Nikki Bella is the greatest of all time. I want to say. She's my world champion.
Yeah, and never mind.
Yeah.
Hey,
and yeah,
at least I'll be using my Magnum condoms, Stevie. Whatever.
Yeah.
I see.
But yeah, she's also won the SmackDown Women's title when they had one for each show, which you can't call that the world's title either, because you're the weekly champion. That's how I'm looking at it.
I follow you.
So my number 5, and I don't know why she's never been the women's world champion, and they've brought it back so that she can still win it. But number 5 is Natalya Neidhart.
I knew it.
Yeah, she's won. I think has wrestled the most matches ever.
They're turning her into like a Dolph Ziggler type, the one that's a utility player.
Yeah,
I like that.
But what she's done in the company, not just because of her father as well, but she's a great female wrestler.
I guess the Divas title, yeah.
Yeah,
okay, that's what I'm thinking about.
But see, now they had the WWF Women's Championship. They still had it in WWE. Then they took it away for years, brought it back. Then they brought out the Divas thing. I think that was when
But see, that's why I would kind of make the Divas title the world title, because I look at it that way, because I look at the Divas as a world champ because that was the only women's title there was.
But that was kind of a thing that Johnny Ace brought in when he.
Yeah, that Divas title was a joke to me.
Johnny Ace,
Johnny Ace, the
greatest mullet of all time.
Well, then it's almost like saying you're the Playboy of the month, you're the Playgirl of the month, being the Divas champion, because it's gone now. Now they've got the Women's World Championship.
Yeah, but when you had Paige and AJ have it, it was more respectable than like a Nikki Bella. And I love Nikki Bella, but I don't know. I would put it up there as a world title. That's just my.
That's what I said to Stevie. There's not a lot. There is some gray area with this with a champion, because that was the women's champion, but you weren't the world's women's. It's like, imagine if they had the Diamond Stud Championship belt for men.
Or you talk about the $1 million title too.
There you go.
Johnny Ace.
John
Hard to believe his brother was in the. You look at that picture and you like, God, his brother was in the Road Warriors.
Yeah.
Yes. How odd is that?
Yeah.
Shane Douglas.
You can see all the muscle went in that group.
Shane Douglas.
Although Johnny Ace's ace cutter, his finishing move looked deadly. He made that look good.
Wow.
Shane Douglas, talk about a waste of space. Never liked that guy.
Shane Douglas was coming on the show next week, but I don't think he'll be there.
You can hear him by yourself, man. I don't know. I don't know. The guy always kind of rubbed me the wrong way on and out, in and out of the ring. So
he rubbed you?
Yep. With my Magnum condom, Stevie.
But that's my number 5. Like I said,
Italia.
Yeah.
That Divas Championship, when they brought that in, I thought that was from the time
I still say it's the world title.
I thought it was a joke. I mean, that was pretty.
It wasn't a joke to the women that were wrestling for it.
No, but
that meant a lot to like Nikki Bella and AJ. I mean, I don't think it was a joke at all. But my hat's off to Jack for having a woman on there because God, I didn't even think about that. Sexist bastard that I am. Missy Hyatt, yeah, she should have won. Missy Hyatt back in the day.
I couldn't wrestle her way out of a wet paper bag.
She didn't need to back then.
Yeah, back then. But all right. So my number 4. And this guy wrestled in so many different this was one that I had to really look at the different federations he was in, because he's had so many different personalities, usually even his own. But was going to be the big time guy for one promotion that went out, but he saw the writing on the wall and he left before they closed the AWA. But mine is Scott Hall.
Scott Hall? Yeah.
Back in the day, the AWA, this tells you how bad creative was in AWA. Okay, we're going to call wonder where they got this from. We're going to call him Magnum Scott Hall.
Magnum again.
He had the mustache and everything. And then they said, okay, well, after a while they said, no, we need to call him Big Scott Hall. So the AWA, he actually won the tag belts there with Kurt Hennig.
Mm-hmm.
They lost it, and then I think Hennig went heel. He left to go to WCW. They called him Gator Scott Hall. I remember,
WCW called it. I think it was a Diamond Stud.
No, first. This was in like '89. He came there and they called him Gator Scott Hall, and the WCW started doing these vignettes like the WWF had done, and they showed Scott Hall up there messing with alligators.
God, no wonder they went out of business.
But he stayed there for a little while, reinvented himself as the Diamond Stud, which I thought was,
which was Razor Ramon, pretty much.
Razor Ramon before he was Razor Ramon. But then, after Razor, he did the whole Razor thing. He reached his potential, but never won a world championship. I think he actually fought Sting for it one time that I saw. I remember seeing.
I think he's only had one championship match.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I only saw him one time for a world championship. He fought Sting. And I thought it was kind of weird at the time because it was kind of out of nowhere. Because Sting was like in the middle of the Hogan feud. And this was like, it may have been a pay-per-view. But I don't know. He just never got that opportunity. He got the U.S. title, the Intercontinental title, the tag titles, but never got the big belt. But unfortunately, no longer with us after a long struggle with alcohol and other chemicals, like Gene Simmons would say. But yeah,
Scott. He was a handsome and attractive man.
Oh yeah,
as Gene Simmons would say.
Yeah, he had his problems. Definitely had his problems, but he was a very talented wrestler, and hate to see the way he went.
He put over the 1, 2, 3 Kid
Well,
perfectly.
he really wasn't happy about that either, but he did it. Because he had been in the business. So it's kind of like Warren Anderson said, I never knew you could say no. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the case with Scott Hall at that time, but he did what they told him to do. Because if you didn't, you were, yeah.
Well, actually, he was the
Like the
Kid
whole
back then. I was say
Hogan.
1, 2, 3 Kid.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was.
and that ended up being one of the best storylines right there. Because that led to him going babyface.
Yeah.
But
So it worked out.
it worked out. Yeah, it worked out really good for
They
him.
became lifelong friends too. So.
Yeah.
He had a good run in WWF. He had a better run as a babyface because he won multiple intercontinental titles.
Yeah, but those vignettes with him when he like first started doing the Scarface thing, those were a classic.
Yeah.
There was a thing with him one time when I think it was fighting Owen Hart, and Owen Hart was there talking about his dad, and then out of nowhere, Razor Ramon like clotheslining him.
Oh yeah, in the
Your
locker
daddy
room.
teach you that, Chico, and threw the tooth at him. It was great.
And that was right before Owen went heel. But
Owen and heel against Bret Hart was great.
yes,
I was at that match in San Antonio at Survivor Series when he had his parents down there crying, and when Bob Backlund had him in the chicken hole.
Oh yeah, got his Hart, the towel.
And I was like, oh, I love Owen. Now I didn't like him before, but when he's screwing over, which I like Bret too, but man, I remember that, and he got the parents to throw in the towel. That was here in Survivor Series. That was
never ever thought Owen would have been as good a heel.
He was a great one.
He was a great heel.
I like him better as a heel.
Yeah, I did too.
Another one gone too soon, man. Him and Yokozuna, that was a great tag team. I like that.
Yeah, that's another episode we can talk about with Owen.
Owen with the greatest manager of all time, Jim Cornette.
That's good, Camp Cornette. All right. So Worden, you're number 4.
Okay, my number 4. One of my favorite wrestlers, probably in my top 10. I don't know, maybe no. We did our top 10. Did we do our top 10 already, or our top 10 tag teams? I think this guy would be in my top 10. He was a great heel. He wasn't a very good guy, but I remember when he turned on Hogan. It was so great.
How many people turned on Hogan?
I know, but it's like I saw this coming a mile away.
Brutus Beefcake.
And when he was fighting on Saturday night's main event, and they were going down the cage, and they hit at the same time.
Oh yeah.
He was robbed, man. Paul Orndorff should have been champion. It's like Ventura said, oh, Mr. Wonderful hit it first, which it was. You think about them kind of coming up with that and having cameras on that where they both hit at the same time. I mean, that's just great storytelling.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like
Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. I'm actually friends with his son on Facebook, or not Facebook.
Travis.
Well, yeah, I follow it. Well, I think he follows me too on Instagram, and he always posts stuff about his dad.
Yeah.
And Mr. Wonderful was like one of my favorites because I remember when he got screwed over at WrestleMania 1 and he turned on, Bobby Heenan and all that stuff. And then a few years go by and then he clotheslined Hogan. I was like so happy because I was like, oh, another guy that can beat Hogan, which it was a fool's dream. But I remember I like Orndorff, and man, and I saw him in later years. I think he was on Monday Night Raw or something. Boy, the guy started messing with the facial hair, man. Didn't he have like a handlebar mustache or something?
Had the rolly fingers mustache.
Yeah, and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff was one of my favorite 80s heels. I loved Orndorff. I think he's somebody that should have, I don't know. I think they should have took the title off Hogan a couple times and maybe just for a little bit like they did Flair to give the guy, but Hogan was so big, I guess they didn't want to do that. But I thought Paul Orndorff should have got at least a little run on that.
Orndorff, like you said, that night, I remember watching that night when both of them hit the floor at the same time. And even then, they were going back showing the replay, and I was like, how? I mean,
perfect. It was perfect.
Exactly.
It had to be the referees guiding them. It had to be one because I mean
you didn't have stuff back then where you could really coordinate that stuff. That was just freaking luck.
That just tells you, because I know Hogan and Orndorff were good friends, and that just tells you the chemistry those two had together to pick off something like that.
And that whole storyline with when he turned on Hogan, what was it like?
I think it was the Superstars. The Superstars. They were in a tag team. It was the Superstars of Wrestling.
Yeah.
Like
Bundy and
John Studd.
And the week before, it was like, you didn't get my phone call or something, like you didn't answer the phone or something like that. You could see it coming a mile away. I was like, when is this going to happen?
But when it happened, you were so, I mean, yes.
Like you said, when you said he turned on Hogan, I was like, well, you're going to have to narrow that down. There was about 50 of them. That
You're like, no, Savage was champion. It can't be Savage.
Yeah, well, yeah. It could have been Beefcake, though. He butchered a friend.
Yeah. But didn't he do it wasn't he like one of the guys in WCW? Didn't he do that?
He was the last guy that kept attacking, and then I think it was after Hogan beat Flair and Flair had to retire, that he came out there again. The bad thing was, if you watch it, when he rips Beefcake's mask off, and Hogan's sitting there like doing the whole shock face and everything, and Beefcake is like, "It's not what you think, brother."
Yeah.
I mean, what else could he be thinking? I mean,
wasn't he in the Dungeon of Doom or something like that?
Yeah,
like,
they called him the Butcher. Then they went to like the Man with No Name or something like that.
Yeah.
The worst thing that happened to Brutus Beefcake is the worst thing that happened to Brutus Beefcake is the 80s ended. Because he had the Brutus Beefcake, he had all like the stuff that Macho Man and Paul Stanley would wear, all the leopard print stuff. But when that stuff was out of style, his career went downhill.
He's still rocking the 80s mullet now.
The worst thing that happened to Beefcake was when they started calling him the Booty Man.
What did he get hit by a paraslide or a guide? Or was that true, or was that
that was true. Yeah, he's got steel plates in his
every
face.
time I see that, I every time I see a paraglide, I think of that. Like, fuck, you can get hit by one of those things. I watch wrestling. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So number 4, Paul Orndorff.
With with Paul Orndorff, I'm just wondering, like, would winning the AW, the American Wrestling Federation belt count, or Georgia State?
No,
I don't know. Not back in the day.
No,
he never won.
George, what are you talking about? No, that was just a regional title.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, he didn't win the AWA. He didn't win the. I mean, if it would have been UWF, of course, people like Terry Gordy and Dr. Death would be out because that was a universal, was considered a world. But he was a Georgia State championship, but that wasn't really, the NWA was still above that.
Yeah. What that was back in the day, the NWA had like Georgia
had branches.
Yeah, they Georgia, Florida,
territories, what they were
Atlantic
territories.
If you were the world champion, you had to go to all these territories. You had to go to, like, Central States. You had to go to World Class. You had to go to Florida. All those places like that. But a regional title like what you're talking about is what you're talking about.
Yeah,
because the Georgia championship would be there, but Ric Flair was still above that.
Yeah, he would come around as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
And you had Memphis, where Jerry Lawler was at. He was a champion, but that was over the AWA with like Nick Bockwinkel, Kurt Hennig, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Orndorff actually beat Buzz Sawyer for what they called the NWA National Heavyweight Championship,
which is like an American title.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
I'll tell you how it worked. You had like, when it was NWA, what I watched, you had the world champion, then the U.S. champion, then you had like a national champion, and then you had the TV champion.
Yeah.
And then there was actually at one time a junior heavyweight champion, which was.
And now you got NWA, AEW doing that now.
Yeah.
The NWA had their title was the NWA World TV title.
Yes.
So are you going to consider that a world title?
No, I wouldn't. Okay. No.
I wouldn't either. Because I know one of Stevie's picks would have been disqualified if that was the case.
You think?
Like I said, that's what AEW has now. They got the TV champion who does more now than what MJF does. I'm not saying MJF doesn't do anything, but I think it's actually Christian. I think
what it used to be was
Christian's doing great. I love.
Dude, he's the greatest heel today.
Yeah,
I'll give you that. I don't know. MJF's pretty good, but he's not really a heel, I guess now.
No, he's changing a bit.
Yeah, MJF's pretty good. He got buff, dude. He was like, wow, who's that guy? That's MJF.
Like, Christian
He got
literally
more
came
hair
out-
and buff.
Christian came out when Ric Flair came out and goes, Tony
Saw
Khan
that.
has all this money. He gives you an old man as a gift
Change.
in jeans.
I love seeing Edge there though. Edge is one of my favorites of all time.
Give it time. He will do great there.
Yeah.
But he's not. But Edge is like Jericho. He's not trying to be the guy. He knows his time has passed. He's trying to push
Yes.
newer talent.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of people. That's why the WWF. I mean, I think it's great with who's that guy going against Roman Reigns?
LA Knight.
Oh, LA Knight.
LA Knight's probably going to win the title because Roman Reigns about to leave for a while. They said he ain't going to be back till the Royal Rumble. So he may drop the title.
I don't think they'll let LA Knight be.
When is LA Knight? When is that match? Saudi Arabia or whatever.
Next week.
Is it
Yeah.
next
I think
week?
it's-
Okay.
Yeah.
Next Saturday.
I have Peacock. It's like $3 a month, and I don't even pay attention. It's like, oh yeah, hey, WWF's on.
But if you don't, you can't. It'll be on during the day. It won't be on at night.
It sucks.
It'll be on, I think, 4 a.m. for me on Sunday.
I'll be asleep, so it'll be okay.
Yeah.
So number 4 for you, Pennachio.
Number 4 for me. So this was a hard one because I've had like 3 or 4 names here, and most of them probably be my honorable mentions. But I'm gonna go with this guy. He's been around since about early 90s. He's won everything from IC, European. He was also King of the Ring. And that man, like he could have done one run in the early thousands, even for like a month, and that is William Regal.
Yes,
Oh yeah.
good pick.
Just a short amount of time, because I feel if you win King of the Ring, that means they're saying, you know what, you're not there yet, but you're there.
You're almost there.
But what he's done, even when he was like, what was it, like the working class man, he came out in
Oh,
a hard
God,
hat and,
yeah.
and a little
That was the absolute
cut off
worst,
sleeves.
the worst gimmick and the worst entrance music ever.
He's a man. But no, really Regal, one run. That's all he needed. That's all.
Wasn't he supposed to win it, and he like had some kind of problem or something like that? Didn't he had some kind of problem on an airplane or something? I think that he was supposed to be a champion of something, and I don't know.
I don't
People-
remember that.
I don't know.
It may be true.
I don't know about
I know
wrestling.
he had a lot of substance abuse.
Yes,
Yeah, he had
I
some
think that's
problems.
what it was. He was
Yeah.
supposed to be WWF or WCW or not WCW, but one of those champions. And I think that's what got in his way. My funny thing about William Regal is when they're doing that gimmick with him in the Big Show, and they're in the bathroom. He looks over at the Big Show.
Yeah.
He sees he's looking at his, you know what? And he's like, holy shit.
Do you guys remember him as
The Blue Blood with Bobby Eaton.
well? Around that, but he wasn't William Regal then. He was Lord Stephen Regal.
Lord Stephen Regal, yep.
Yeah, he was a TV champion for a while.
I think it was him.
Actually-
He had like this British lady. I think it was him that she kept changing the match rules. I'm pretty sure it was him. Maybe not. Maybe it was with Chris
Yeah,
Jericho.
he had a guy with him. It was Bill Dundee, but he was
Bill Dundee, the one that fought against Lawler, that guy?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
he was his little sidekick. I can't remember his
Oh,
name.
that's right. That's WCW days.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. But
Yeah.
just him with Big Show at the urinal, just looking over at the.
And then yeah.
Oh, that crapped me out. It's funny.
But yeah, I'm looking to see. I do seem to remember something like what you're talking about, Jack, but I can't.
I think it might have been with Chris Jericho. I think I got them confused.
may have been.
Like it was a match, and then something happened. Then she goes, "I'm going to make it a no DQ match," and then something else happened. And she made it something else. I thought it was with William Regal. I could be wrong.
I'm looking up his stuff. Eesh.
But yeah, like while you're doing that, like I said, with William Regal and what he's done throughout the years, even when he's backstage, even when he was the commissioner, The dude could go there. He made me believe that the brass knuckles was the must-have heel weapon. He used to hide it everywhere.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't him. I don't
Wasn't
know
he in AEW and they let him go back to WWF for a reason?
So they
Right.
WWE let him go when they did their big thing during COVID, and then AEW took him, and then I think his contract just ran out, and I think just Triple H said come back. And he's like,
Isn't
okay,
his son in NXT or something?
yes, yeah.
I'll tell you what, you want to see something funny? Watch Regal versus Goldberg, and that's when everybody realized Goldberg didn't know how to wrestle. And Goldberg would say that. Yeah, he put it to me then.
It took him that long for people to realize.
Well, I mean, Goldberg was like that era's Hulk Hogan. Stomp, kick, jackhammer.
I don't think Hogan was as bad as Regal or as Goldberg.
Hogan had. This is Hogan's match.
I get what you're saying, but I wouldn't. I'm not a Hogan fan of his wrestling, but I wouldn't put him down with.
See, you can make fun of Hogan's wrestling style, but people really need to see Hogan in Japan to see what he can do.
Goldberg can never do that.
No, never.
He's a totally different guy when he got in Japan. And
only thing about Goldberg is that he was like kind of thrown into it. He was like so hot that they had no choice.
They had to make him win.
They had to do it. They were fighting for their lives against WWF.
Yeah.
All right. So number 4 is William Regal for you. Number 3 for me. And we talked about him a little bit earlier. Who knows what would have happened with him? I don't know if he would have ever achieved a world championship, but he got close a couple of times fighting his brother, and I'm talking about Owen Hart. That cage match at SummerSlam that year, Bulldogs at ringside. You hadn't seen Bulldog. He's been gone for a while. Bulldogs in the crowd with the whole Hart family. Then look off to the side, Jim Neidhart sitting like the black sheep of the family. But Owen, going back and watching that match, Owen was so freaking close a few times. They played it great. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it was both him and Brett that figured out what they were going to do, but he got close so many times to getting out of that cage. But so much talent. I remember when, you're reading in the magazines at Stampede Wrestling, which was a thing back in the day. He was really, and then you look at it, you're like, okay, he's Stu's son. Of course, Stu's gonna put him over. But then when he comes up, and of course McMahon puts him in a mask and calls him the Blue Blazer.
Yeah,
everybody knew it was Owen. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, but for a little while after the Blue Blazer thing, that first thing, Owen was in WCW. Owen teamed up with Ricky Morton from Rock and Roll Express for a little while. It's on YouTube. I was like in shock when I saw it. I don't know what happened, but I'm sitting there watching WCW syndicated show, and all of a sudden you look up, here comes Ricky Morton, and the guy said, Ricky Morton with his new tag team partner, Owen Hart. And I'm like, dude, what? It was a very short stay. I don't know what caused it, but let me see.
Brett wasn't there yet, was he?
No, this was way before.
Brett was still in WWE.
Okay. He debuted in World Championship Wrestling on March 16th, 1991, the first of 5 TV matches, all of which were against preliminary talent. He teamed with Ricky Morton in some of them, but yeah, so 5 matches. I don't know how that worked. Obviously, he didn't have a contract that kept him there, but it wasn't long after that he was back with the WWF. So evidently, it says here Hart had been engaged in contract discussion with WCW, but the deal was never struck as Owen was not willing to move himself and his family to the company's headquarters in Atlanta. So
he could have stayed.
If he could have stayed, no telling what Owen would have done there, or it could have worked out for the worst, could have been for the best. But
you kind of gotta realize that we don't really know how great Owen was because he's another, Magnum TA, somebody that could have
Oh,
been.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Chris
Uh,
Jericho said that was his favorite wrestler.
Yeah.
And when you have somebody like Chris Jericho giving you props, that's pretty damn amazing. Jericho would know because Jericho grew up, in Canada with the Stampede.
Yep.
The fact that Owen stayed there, and I know he was under contract, the fact that he stayed there and did some of the things for WWF and Vince after what happened with Brett with that whole thing, just tells you how class act he is. But because he was doing the
I'm not a nugget.
yeah, and look, one of the biggest pranksters you ever see.
Heard
I've
that.
heard him and Bulldog. There's some audio I think on YouTube. Him and Bulldog prank calling people in the hotel they were staying in
Yeah.
about pizza delivery. And it's a lady, and the lady is just like, and Owen's just like, I'm just trying to give you a pizza, and she was like, I don't want to take a pizza. She gets so hot, but stuff like that. But
Owen did the same with D'Lo Brown. D'Lo was telling the story that he was like nervous, so Owen got him in a grapple, and he goes to D'Lo, look down. He looks down. He goes, "You just untied my shoes." I'm like, yeah, I know. He grappled again. He undid his other shoe, and then he goes to D'Lo, "How you feeling?" He goes, "I feel fine now." He goes, "Let's wrestle." He took his mind away because he was so focused on his shoes now. And D'Lo said that's just who he was in the ring. He just took care of you.
Well, that old saying goes, only the good die young. So I think he's another example of that because it's just, I remember when that happened, when he died, it's just.
too.
Do you guys,
I mean,
did you guys see it?
Yeah, I was watching the pay-per-view. I was watching the pay-per-view when it happened. I think it happened it was at Kansas City or St. Louis, one thing up there.
I think it was. Oh, I can
It
tell
may have been Kansas City, but they're saying Kemper Arena maybe. They were saying that his ghost still haunts that the custodians they say his ghost over there.
Kansas City, Missouri. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to go too deep with it. Did you see him fall, or was like a kind of a cutaway?
It was a cutaway with Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler. Yeah. And they came on and said it, and I was like, well, there ain't no way they're going to go on with the show, but goddamn, they did.
They were actually showing an interview that was recorded earlier with him when it happened, and then it cut to Ross and Lawler. Well, actually,
they're just in shock. They're just like they saw it happen
first because Lawler had gone to ringside, and Lawler came back, and you could just see the look on Lawler's face that it was like, okay, this isn't good, and yeah.
And Jim said
Jim Ross said he died. He was already saying
when it made an announcement, yeah.
And then Jim was saying in his headset, he just heard Michael Hayes go, "All right, guys, we're back in 3, 2." Like Jim's like, "Shit."
Yeah, Jim Ross talks about it in his book. Yeah,
we got to keep going. Like, what do you? Oh, man, that's
what do you got? How do you guys feel about that? I mean,
I don't think today you couldn't.
Well, yeah. You see the football stuff happen. I don't think they should have out there. I think it was an insult to Owen and his family. And I can see why the widow is so pissed off.
I have to agree with you. You look at the main event that night, The Undertaker and Stone Cold were there, and you look, and Shane McMahon was about it. You watch them come to the ring, and they are like totally out of it. I mean, how could you not be when one of your guys you're with all the time just fell to his death a few minutes earlier?
You kind of got to think about Austin too, because Austin never really forgave him for hurting him like that. That's been the rumor, and he never made peace with that.
I think that was blown out of proportion there.
Well, yeah, you're probably right because Brett he's really high on Austin.
Yeah, I think that was blown out of proportion because Austin. I've never really heard Austin.
Me either.
And criticize him about it.
Well, hell, remember he came out there and gave him the salute of the beer. I mean, remember that?
Yeah, the night after.
Yeah, and it's
there. That was one of the first times that you had to deal with something like that.
They shouldn't have gone on with it, and I think it would have been okay if they didn't. I think people would have understood.
People would have understood
when they went on with it. I was like, they're going to freaking go on with this show.
Even if they even if they didn't say he died yet, they could have said, "Look, he's gone to hospital. The show's cancelled. We'll let you know." Yeah. But there's a video going around now of Undertaker in the corner. They're taking his robe off, and apparently he's just staring at the blood
Yeah.
on the floor.
That's what I'm talking about when they came to the ring, and that they're still working in that ring
Yeah,
where he died at. His blood is still there.
it's not a blood capsule. It's not
No, it's
a
his
gimmick.
blood.
It's real.
But it's Vince McMahon. Are you surprised? I'm not.
Go on with the show. We need the money.
Go on.
Well, I can, it's like, we give a lot of these athletes a bunch of shit for getting the money, but hell, I don't blame people for getting the money because when they're done with you, they're done with you.
They're done. When they don't have anything left of you.
Yeah. So you get all the money though, and people complain about big money athletes and stuff. Those companies or those teams would not give that athlete that money if they weren't making more than that to pay them.
Oh yeah.
So I don't feel bad for we as fans get stuck with the $16 beer, especially in my case, an underperforming football team. But I mean, hey, when you get the money, take it. Cause you get a little injury. Hey,
especially with wrestling, they can go, sorry,
oh, yeah.
we got nothing for you.
Look what they did to China. My God, she was still champion when they got rid of her.
Yeah.
Because of Triple H.
And they use anything as an excuse. Oh, she makes dirty movies. Yeah. No, I can't have that.
Yeah. Well, hell, give her a raise. I would. All right, Stevie.
Oh my gosh, I just did my number 3.
Oh yeah, yours, Jason.
Oh, it's my turn.
Yes, your number 3.
He was mentioned before, and I think that he would have been higher on my list if not for some of the recent news about this guy. He's kind of pulling a Brett Favre, and kind of like, little fraud is involved, allegedly. I don't want to get sued like who does that guy that Brett Favre sued? He was Shannon Sharp and the other guy for talking about that.
Oh.
Pat McAfee.
But yeah, McAfee. But there's a article going on that he was one of my favorites, and Stevie had mentioned him before, but Ted DiBiase.
Yeah.
He's involved in some kind of suit. Like I think one of his
son.
No, his son.
One of it. Yeah, no, he's involved with it too. He's been accused of it too. So, but one of his sons is in jail. But he's been ordered to pay so much back too. So it's kind of like the whole thing with, I don't think Flair did as bad, but they don't rank as high on my list because of the stuff they did outside the ring. And it shouldn't matter, but it does to me for some reason. But Ted DiBiase was like, I loved him in WC. I loved him in Mid-South Universal before he became the $1 Million Man. I thought the $1 Million Man gimmick was great. I read his book. His book was awesome, talking about how when his stepdad died in the ring, how Terry Funk and all the wrestlers, helped out his mom and family. I thought that was really cool. But Ted DiBiase, one of my favorites growing up. He it was weird. We had a wrestling organization here in San Antonio by Tully Blanchard's dad, Joe Blanchard. It was called Southwest Championship Wrestling. A lot of the Tully Blanchard came from here. The Sheepherders were here. I think they're more from New Zealand, not so much from Australia.
Yeah.
They had a lot of wrestlers come down here, and I would always watch that. And they made up a title one time, I remember. And they say, well, current, and it was like, I think it was a North American champion. They pretty much invented the title and put it on Ted DiBiase because he was going to fight one of the guys here. I'm like, there's no title like that. Ted DiBiase's he's in Mid-South, and I knew enough to know, not have YouTube or Google at the time to know this, but they would like put a title. Oh, he's a champion. Well, how did he get that belt? They just created it, put him on it. But I remember that too. And that's right before he went to WWF, but he turned it up. But, Ric Flair will say that, that's Ric Flair's gimmick about the money and stuff. Like you could have just, but when you hear Ted DiBiase talk about that, what a gig. McMahon would let him fly first class, buy all this stuff. I mean, he gave him like this extra money. He didn't have to spend his paycheck on crap. But he talks about it too, how, he started believing his own hype and stuff. But if you like biographies about wrestlers and stuff, this is one of the best ones.
Do you think Ted was the right guy, just the wrong time?
For that?
Like roughly around the same time when he could have been champ, was just not yet, pal.
He,
kind of thing.
I'll tell you this: back in those days, Vince wasn't going to have a heel champion.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
NWA had they wanted the heel champion. WWF wanted the babyface.
Big boy babyface.
Yeah, the big boy babyface. But if you ever noticed, it's just like we were talking about earlier. Dusty never kept the title because Dusty will tell you, he made more money. More people would come out to see him chasing Flair than to see him defending against Flair. Because, they were like.
What they'd always do too is they'd always take it off Flair. They put on Ronnie Garvin.
It was like a transitional.
WWF never had that. They weren't going to lose their cash cow with Hulk Hogan. He was too big. Oh, we can't have Hulk Hogan lose. That's why buying the title was such a great storyline.
Yeah,
with the Hebner brothers, whatever they're called. Yeah, that was great. It's like
how much did you pay for the plastic surgery?
Yeah.
But yeah, Hogan's first reign was like 4 years. I mean, and now how long has Reigns had it now?
1,000+ days now.
But they still doesn't beat Bruno. Bruno had 7 years?
Bruno had 7 or 8, yeah, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, so DiBiase, we got a repeat. First repeat.
Ted would have been on my list. I was just so close with that one, but
yeah, Ted being a heel in WWE and not a big guy, he wasn't going to win.
Ted DiBiase, if he would have stayed in UWF, he would have been eventually a champion. He wouldn't be.
Oh yeah, he would have been a world champion in UWF.
I do like the $1 million belt though. Such a great design.
Yeah,
I like it.
I like the thing with the kid bouncing the basketball and all that stuff.
And he kicks it. Wasn't that one of the Usos?
No, I don't think it was.
I don't know. It could have been. I mean, they used those kids back then for all that stuff, but that was great.
You cannot do that today. You can't.
Oh no, there's a lot of stuff that you couldn't.
Remember the one? He's at the pool, and then all the kids are there. He kicks them all out of there.
Yeah,
and pays him to get
out of the pool now.
The money he threw from the ceiling. What was it? Real dollar bills? No,
I don't know.
They probably AC/DC when they did the Money Talks video. They had all the Angus on the.
I guess because Alice Cooper did that too once.
Yeah, but when he used to spend the money, he lived he talks about in his book. He lived that lifestyle. It was a great lifestyle.
Yeah.
Ted. I want to say, gosh, I'm gonna have to find it one time. If I find it, I'll put it up there. But he did something with one of the Usos. He did one of those. I don't know if it was a basketball, but it was one of them he did with one of the Usos. I swear.
Probably.
I'm just trying to think if it had to be early 90s because I think I'm older than the Usos, I think. And I don't know if Fatu, Rikishi was.
Yeah, he was there because he was
there. No, he could have been. That could be.
I always thought Rikishi was the Tonga kid, but they're two different guys. They're different guys.
Yeah. But yeah, Jim Britt, he talked about porn earlier. Now he's saying he loves dirty movies. So go ahead, Jim.
Aren't they the same thing?
Yeah.
I'm looking on YouTube, and I'm gonna see if Ted DiBiase. So Pennachio, who is your number 3?
Number 3. So I think it also goes along the same line as Ted being a heel. And I think this could be another episode, the greatest heels of all time. But my number 3 is Jake the Snake.
Okay.
But as I said, around that time, heels and champions, Vince would never have done that. But he could have been.
He had a good run as a babyface too when he had Alice Cooper out there and stuff.
Yeah. Sorry. But I just loved his heel promo so much when he didn't yell.
He was intense.
He didn't do much. He just looked in the camera and he made you feel scared. Even as I said with William, just a little short championship just to prove that he is the great one, but never
won a championship in WWF. No tag, no intercontinental. But I'll tell you this, before he went babyface.
Who? Jake? Talk about
Jake.
Jake.
There was he did what, the snake pit, kind of like Piper's Pit. He did the snake pit. And there was one they filmed where Hogan came out there, and him and Jake went back and forth. Jake DDT'd Hogan, and the crowd went nuts. They cheered more for it. So guess what McMahon did? Said,
you got the worst fucking
that will never make there. And the whole feud with Jake was shelved. So there went Jake's champ. He probably wouldn't have won, wouldn't have beat Hogan, but there went Jake's chance right there because the crowd reacted so favorably to him. And Vince said, Vince was like, I cannot have a heel. It's getting cheers over my biggest babyface, my cash cow. But yeah, Jake was a master of psychology. I mean,
and I think that's why I probably preferred NWA, because you had a heel champion.
Yeah.
The whole Hogan thing, it was too superhero type thing. It's just, he's not going to lose. And it just, I mean, I guess in a way I had been watching, I was kind of the old school spirit that, like when you had a heel become champion, that pissed the crowd off, and that was great. But you wouldn't do that to a WWE crowd.
No.
Well, a heel champion is great because he's always going to cheat to win, and you think to yourself, he's never going to lose the belt. No one can beat him. So it makes you want to watch it.
You watch to see him get beat every week. And that's like Flair back in the day.
Yes.
You were watching, everybody was watching. Look, when they did that, or in 85, they did Great American Bash, which was a one-night event in Charlotte.
And it became a month-long thing.
Then 86, it was a month-long thing where Flair fought, I don't know how many in 30 days. He defended the belt. I forgot how many times in 30 days. It was like 20 sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, he was supposed to, but he dropped it to Dusty.
And he won it back a couple of days later.
But it was late in that month that he lost it to Dusty.
I remember that series. It was the great with the Flair thing, but it was also the Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard feud. That was great.
No, well, the bash that year in 86 was Magnum and Nikita best of 7 for the U.S. title.
Well, no, there was one, maybe it was before, but it was a series. Starcade, maybe. I don't know.
85. That was the I Quit match.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, now look, you want to talk about the best time for NWA for Crockett. Summer of 86, you had the Rock and Roll Express feuding with the Midnight Express. You had Magnum and Nikita. You had the Horsemen and Dusty.
The Warriors against the Russians.
Yeah. The Road Warriors against the Midnight Express. Baby Doll against Jim Cornette. Did you ever see that whole angle there, Jack?
No.
Oh.
I do know it because I think Jim's spoken about it.
You talk about something you could not do today. Cornette, the funniest thing was after he did it, because he dropped her, or he hit her in her female parts, and they were talking about, the whole thing was she's really hurt. She may not ever be able to have kids and all this stuff. Well, then about a couple of weeks later, the Midnight Express it's on the TBS show, and they're like, we've got this match against the James Boys. And these two guys come out with cowboy hats and masks on. And you can tell it's Magnum and Dusty. But they get a hold of him. And this was a risk. You may have heard Cornette talk about this. They carried him off and tied his neck in a rope, look back there, Baby Dolls on a truck. And they tied the other end of the rope to the little bumper, and they took off. And Bobby Eaton gets the rope off, and it yanks Bobby Eaton when he's got his hand on it. It yanks him. So Jim Cornette's like, I've heard him talk about it. He said, if Bobby Eaton hadn't got that thing off in time, I'd be dead, because they were going. They were supposed to go. Jim Brett's Rock and Roll Express and Stomper trucks. Damn, I miss those days. Yeah, those were the things back in the day, the little Stomper trucks. But yeah.
What's a Stomper truck?
You don't remember them? the little battery operated trucks that had like the little foam wheels. Maybe it was a East Coast thing. I don't know, but oh gosh, now I'm gonna have to find the freaking Stomper trucks to show you. After I did my Johnny Ace picture a while ago. But they were battery.
I'm still recovering from that picture, Stevie.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
I had those. They used to wear those like kind of those Bermuda shorts like Anthrax did. Remember those?
Oh gosh, yeah. What were they called?
I love those Bermuda shorts or whatever they were called.
Were they jams?
Yeah, jams too. They were called that too, but they wore those, and also like Anthrax wore them, and those were like happening '80s jams, man. They're like you almost wearing pajamas.
Get ready, Worden. I'm going to show you what a Stomper truck was. See if you remember this.
Okay.
Let's see. That's a Stomper truck. It takes one AA battery, had working headlights, but I mean the tires are like some kind of rubbery thing.
How do you control it? Like a remote control?
No, you just turn it on and you let it go.
I don't remember those.
It wasn't remote control. They were small. They weren't big like remote control cars.
Well, we had like those Dukes of Hazzard where you'd wind them up and let them run. That's what I remember.
Oh yeah, we had those too. But the Stompers were big for like 1 year because I remember I got them for a bunch of them for Christmas 1 year. But
I guess they didn't make it down here to Texas. I guess
evidently it was an East Coast thing. East Coast, West Coast feud.
Didn't make it to Australia.
No, it didn't make it. Hey,
it'll be there next week.
While we're talking about Australia, yeah, we had truck pools too. Y'all probably didn't have them.
We had truck pools. Yeah.
Okay. And this is before your time, Pennachio, but maybe you've heard of them. The group Men at Work. Are they like big time over in Australia? The Land Down.
The band.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
The Land Down Under. Yeah, that because I remember hearing that song. That song was so big back in the day. And then what the heck is Vegemite?
It's a spread that you put on anything you want.
Right.
You have to have.
Is it like meat?
Yeah.
No, it's yeast. It's yeast paste.
Okay. Yeast
paste. Why would you eat that?
It's made from yeast and like. I like it.
Hell, I can't really argue. We eat roadkill down here, not me.
But no, you got to have an acquired taste where you either like it or you don't.
Okay.
It's good for teeth. It's good for teeth. If you have like a really bad toothache, you just rub it on and leave it there.
Really?
So they say.
Wow.
So they say.
Is AC/DC really big down there?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
They're back.
That's what matters. Are they going to tour?
Well, they were in America or South America last 2 weeks ago. They may come back. I don't see why.
I remember I saw an interview with Axl Rose, and he goes, "Hey, what was it like hanging out with Angus and all them?" He goes, "All they do is smoke cigarettes and drink tea."
But yeah, no. The lead singer for it's a bit off topic of Men at Work, Colin Hayes, I believe.
Yeah,
he still tours solo.
Yeah, because I remember hearing it as a kid, hearing that song as a kid because it was all over.
That was everywhere.
Yeah, and then when they said he just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich, I've always wondered what Vegemite was.
They get called a one-hit wonder, but they weren't a one-hit wonder.
They had
so many.
They had Who Could It Be Now? And
Who Could It Be Now? Yeah.
What's the other song? They had another song.
Be Good, Be Good. What was her name?
Johnny Be Good. Yeah, they are.
Johnny Be Good. Yeah. Be good, be good, be good, be good, be good. Yeah.
Now I've got a mind blank, but no, they've got
next episode. Men at Work top 10.
One album.
Well, they had two.
AC/DC is the best thing from Down Under.
Down Under.
It's Saturday night. It could be a.
I can kind of tell by the shirt he's wearing. I kind of give it away.
He loves some AC/DC, evidently.
Oh, I do too. They're my top 5.
Is that the American flag in the AC/DC?
I know that's logo? Like sacrilege, right? What's up with that, man?
Hey.
I think that's a bit like what Kiss does. Wherever AC/DC goes, they just put the country flag in the logo.
Ooh, a shot at Kiss. Nice.
Take a shot at Ace.
I
say that anyway.
My album's going to be better than yours. What,
Yeah,
the non-existent Kiss album that's coming out?
He's going to make an imbecile out of Paul Stanley.
Hey,
So
man,
I
Tom just needs to lock that shed up and leave him in there, man.
I'm guessing after that quote that he won't be there December 2nd.
Oh, I could have told you that before. It's
He'll be there.
Ace is like the kind of the thing that he's that ex like girlfriend or coworker that you try to be nice to, but you really don't want to. So I think both of them were just like, we did our farewell tour 20 years ago. Just, move on.
Actually, Steve Wright from the Potter and Hillcop podcast is seeing Ace tonight. So that should be.
He sounded pretty good at Kiss Cancer Goodbye compared to other videos.
Wasn't Joe Decker seeing him and he had like those extra tickets over in like New York or whatever?
I think he gave them away. From what
Did you see that? Man, they're playing Kiss is playing Austin tomorrow night. And I just wrestled with the longest time to do it, but it was like, you know what? I mean, I don't really mind the ticket prices so much, but the fees they have, I had seen
fees.
I saw them 3 times, like $40 in fees. I
cookie fees, yeah.
I saw them 3 times on this tour, like when it started, and and it's like I was gonna do it, but God, it's like it's just not. Then the set list doesn't change, and it's like, and it's so funny. And I just told myself, Jay, you're done.
Yeah.
Because
we got
Iron Maiden's tour next year, so I'm all happy. And then Metallica, that's probably it for me.
Maiden's coming back to Australia too on this tour.
Maiden, I can't wait. But the tickets go on sale like next week they're not going to be here till 2024 in November.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love Maiden.
Wow.
I love Maiden.
They're a great show. I was happy to see them.
I think it's a farewell tour for them too, but they actually changed the set list.
Yes.
Yeah.
They changed it to depending where they are in the world.
Yeah.
I'm just glad they skipped San Antonio. They didn't come here with that when they were playing that whole last album because I didn't dig that last album too much.
Is that the Final Frontier?
No, they did that last album. No, the final.
You talking about the Japanese album?
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Oh, yeah.
But they were playing that in entirety. But I saw them the last 2 times they played, and I'm going to go see this one. But it's like, I'm probably it'll be by the big shows. Like I'm hoping Metallica comes, but it's like, yeah, I think I'm done with Kiss. I think I pulled a Stevie. It's like, yeah, I'm just gonna mail it in.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But we got to have Jim in the comments from now on. He's full of his lines tonight. He's back in the New York groove, talking about Ace. So where are we at? Did Pennachio just go?
Yeah, I think it's your turn. Number 2.
Yeah, so number 2.
Number 2. And we talked about, actually, this is going to be another repeat. But I remember, when I got into it, this guy was like the big up-and-coming guy of that territory, of the Crockett territory, the soon-to-be future world heavyweight champion. And I'm talking about Magnum TA, what we talked about earlier. As far as what you were talking about, Worden, you found out about it so much later. I had Crockett on every week. We found out about it like the week after it happened.
Because it was local for you. See, it wasn't local for me.
It was local. So, and it was sad because you knew all that potential he had, and then the plan was they took the U.S. belt off of him, let Nikita get it. And then they were going to have like a transitional feud. He was in the middle of a feud with Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was going to end up Flair and him. He gets the belt. And who knows how long he would have kept it, because there was a lot of talk about eventually him and Nikita were going to have a feud again, U.S. versus World Championship. So where does this put Flair in the picture right then? So it might,
Flair. One of Flair's biggest benefits is being available.
Yeah.
Like he was at the best place at the right time. They put that title on Kerry Von Erich. He didn't go through there, so they put it back on Kevin, or put it back on Rick. And then they do this with Magnum TA. He's there. That is why he had such a long run, because he didn't he was. I mean, a lot of the tragedy that happened, Flair benefited from because he was reliable.
Flair didn't mind the schedule either.
No,
Flair,
and you have a lot of guys that can't. I mean, that's a hell of a schedule.
yes. If you saw that, I think a while back they put his itinerary back then for it, and that's a heck of
For Flair.
week, just for a week back then when he had the belt, and he was all over the country.
And he was doing hour matches.
Yeah. Oh, sure. He would do 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Steamboat would do 90-minute matches, and I'm talking about.
He's the Keith Richards of wrestling. I mean, it's like all these people that probably did half the drugs they did are dead, but not those two.
But he would do, like, when he was in that feud with another guy that could have made the list, and probably if he was a decade later, probably would have been a world champion, Ricky Morton. They would do 60-minute matches every night, and it wouldn't phase Flair. I do remember Morton telling a story about Flair. And why are we talking about Flair when I'm talking about Magnum? But about Flair on his boat, and Flair fell off his boat. You know, him and Morton and Flair. I mean, this is a big boat where they had a guy driving the boat for him, but Flair went overboard, and he said, and Morton was like, "Oh God, Ric Flair is dead." And Flair shows up out of nowhere, just like, "Oh, where'd y'all leave me, Brian?" But get back to Magnum.
When he was on the boat, did he run into Paul Stanley out there when he got lost in the wave? Remember that?
He was on an Odyssey.
No, it was like Paul Stanley got evidently he was in Hawaii, or I guess surfing, and he said in his book that he got lost on.
Oh my gosh. Really? Pandemic Paul.
What back then? He was more like our child.
Paul. That's what he is now. The last week or so, Pissy Paul. But
he was pretty cool to that kid. That was a pretty cool video.
Oh man, that got me. I choked up a little bit.
Or the kid that, yeah.
You could tell the kid had cancer or something because he didn't have any hair.
Was that what it was? I didn't want to
think
say
so.
anything when I posted. I was like,
He reminded me of that kid who was that Connor that in the WWC,
Yeah.
so he doesn't have his hair. WWF.
Connor the Crusher.
Yeah, he doesn't have his hair because of chemo.
Yeah. But yeah, Magnum was just, he had the look. I mean, and that belly to belly.
There's a reason they called him Magnum because he was like Tom Selleck at the time.
And he had the women too, but
that's what got him in trouble according to Flair.
Yeah,
he was at somewhere he shouldn't have been.
And he was almost home too when he wrecked. He was like right down the road from home.
He slid in a puddle, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was like it was a Porsche.
Was he drunk?
I've never heard that.
It was probably covered up. It was probably covered up because he's a big star.
I've always heard about the water. There was a lot of water on the road, but I've never heard alcohol. But
I don't think they said anything like that in the Dark Side episode. They didn't say if he was drunk or high. He just
he ain't gonna admit that. I mean, it was the '80s, so he probably got a lot of way. I mean, that would have been like New York or something. He probably wouldn't have got away with it. But it's wasn't it North Carolina somewhere like Charlotte or something like that, Stevie?
Virginia Beach.
Beach.
But all this news about Matthew Perry coming up here, so it's evidently it's
true.
Not a hoax.
Oh yeah, I'm getting a bunch of texts from them too.
All right. So number 2 for you, Worden.
My number 2 has been mentioned before. It's what I'm calling myself today. The bad guy.
Ooh.
Razor Ramon. I remember with him teaming with Kurt Hennig, and I remember when I found out with the Razor Ramon, because it didn't seem like he was as big as Razor Ramon. When he was Scott Hall, he just seemed bigger. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, he
seemed like he slimmed down. He wasn't as muscle bound. He was more sleeker as Scott Hall. And I got a cousin. My grandmother's maiden name's Hall, so I got a cousin named Scott Hall. So when I'll be watching it and stuff, and I remember I put something on Facebook, hey, because he's an Aggie and I'm of course a Longhorn, and I put something about Scott Hall. Of course, all my buddies are putting, hey yo, and they're putting all this, and he has no idea because he was never into wrestling. But Scott Hall, big Scott Hall, diamond stud.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him showing up in WCW after they left. That was the linchpin to me. I don't think Kevin Nash could have done it. I don't think,
No, not by himself.
No, but I mean, I think Scott Hall, you know who I am.
Yeah.
You know where I'm from. They got sued, but Scott Hall not a world champion, but one of the greatest talkers.
Oh gosh.
One of just I remember he had that ladder match with Sean.
Mm.
And I remember that was great. I mean, that was one of the best matches. I mean, just somebody that probably should have had a run as a champion.
Yeah.
But and I think that maybe they may have put that on him instead of Diesel. I think it may have been a better run and I love Kevin Nash, one of my favorites. But I maybe think Scott Hall was more established. He's much better wrestler. And it's just, and I listen to Kevin Nash's podcast. I hear him talk about Scott Hall, hear him talk about his son.
Yeah.
And it's like, God, what a hell of a couple years him to have. But yeah, Scott Hall should have been a champion. I mean, I think if he would have stayed in WCW, would he have been as big, or WWF would he have been as big? WCW, you kind of got carte blanche about everything. And, he seemed more in control. He didn't really have these problems in WWF. But WCW, he was well able to do everything. But
I think you would have had a better chance in WCW. I think at the time in WWF, you had Shawn, you had Brett, Stone Cold was coming up. He should have got it in WCW, especially when they had the Wolf Pack and the black and white.
Well, he was responsible for Sting's biggest gimmick, for the Crow gimmick.
Yeah,
he's the one that told Sting, "You'll like this." Jim Brett just said, "Longhorns have short members." Talking about Texas.
They won today.
Yeah, they did.
They did.
Oklahoma didn't know.
Oh, did they lose?
Yes, they did.
Oh, that's my team.
Oklahoma Sooners?
Well, just because of Jim Ross.
Over. Stevie, I got to go. This podcast is over. Got a freaking stir in the building. No, but the one thing about Scott Hall, he was so funny. There was a part on when they were doing the NWO thing. It was Six Pac, Nash, and Hall, and they're effing with the Steiner brothers. And there's somebody filming it, and they act like they run them off the road, and you see the Steiner car flip, and you hear Scott Hall, "Hey man, you think we should stop?" Like, hell no, let's get out of here.
See, he was another one on the mic like Jake the Snake. He didn't have to yell. He didn't have to go off the handle. You just believed him as a heel on the mic, even as Razor.
But Razor was like even a heel, he was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, when the NWO, they were supposed to be these biggest bad guys. People, when they came into WCW, they loved them.
Yep.
And when Hogan turned, they loved it. I mean, that was the way wrestling was changing. They were totally, it was almost like glam metal, getting rejected by the grunge bands. It's like, we don't want this, kayfabe crap anymore. We want, in your face, and stuff like that. So
I like when he used to give his chains to the ring announcer.
Yeah.
If something happened to this, something happened to you, man.
and the toothpick, yeah.
Yeah.
What about the survey though? Another win for the good guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the
NWA, man, or the NWO, it got too many people. I mean, when you have Disco Inferno and who's that other guy? Who's that one guy that Buff Bagwell? I'm like, come on, dude, Buff Bagwell.
Buff okay, I could take Buff as an NWO guy, but when you get like, Mike Rotunda was in there, and then the NWO Sting guy, and then
But when you had Dusty Rhodes and Savage, I mean,
oh yeah,
no.
They overdid it. They overdid it.
The Big Show was a pretty cool. The Giant was a pretty cool get.
Oh yeah,
but they should have stopped it.
He had a baby face so many times, and he still did that in WWE.
It's like Baby Dolls. She turned on how many times she turned on Dusty?
I don't know. I know at least one.
When the NWO came back to WWE, Big Show joined him again.
Yeah, again. Yeah, so he was in there like 3 or 4 times.
I went to a WCW crowd. It was when Hogan was doing the Tonight Show thing, I guess, when they did the Jay Leno thing.
Yeah.
That was one of the best. I mean, it put WWF to shame. I mean, not, later with an Attitude Era, but I mean, it was, man, I had the NWO shirt. I was so into the NWO. I mean, that was one of my favorite gimmicks.
All right. Number 2 for you, Pennachio.
Cool. So we may start doubling up here, but that's okay. It's how it's meant to be. But we've gone through him once already, I believe, and for the second time, and that's Owen Hart.
Yeah.
Same as William Regal. He's won everything.
No.
Carried his slammies around.
Oh yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Him and Brett, especially when they went up against each other, he could have won it easily. Just because you look at a champion, it's who should be the face of the company, who everyone wants to go after. And Owen as the heel, 100%, he could have done it.
Would have been better than Bob Backlund, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Look how fast they took it off him and put it on Diesel.
Hey, beat him what, like 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw that. I saw that here when he did that thing and got, win that. Then like 5 days later, he lost to Diesel. I'm like, what the hell?
Didn't he? Is that how the Sheik won it over Backlund? Someone threw the towel in.
Yeah, Arnold Scaling, who was
Yeah.
Backlund's manager.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but no, I think Owen today is the biggest what if.
Yeah. Him and Magnum. I'd put Magnum.
Yeah. Those two, yeah.
Yeah, those two would be the
Magnum's
big
a little before your time, but I think Owen is the Magnum of like your
Of my
kinda,
time. Yeah.
Yeah, because Owen would have been great. He was, I mean, I don't know. I hate to hear that, man, because it's kind of like that Kenny Chesney song, "Where You'd Be Today." I mean, it's just like, like when I think about somebody, that's a song.
I mean, you hear his name, it's because he's passed away, but that's the first thing you think of. It shouldn't have happened. What happened to Owen?
It could have been prevented.
It's like, it's like a Jimi Hendrix, a Kurt Cobain. What would they have done? So young.
Exactly. But no, Owen's my second. Like, he's done it all. So
yeah.
All right.
And that tribute they did to him, man, that was sad. I mean, it was
that whole tribute show. You hear,
just seems like a hell of a good guy. It just sucks when that happens.
I don't think, and I honestly think, when you hear all the stories they told from him that night, even somebody like Triple H in China, they were in tears. He had to be a good guy, no doubt about it.
I think Jeff Jarrett said on his podcast, because they were really good friends.
Yeah, they were.
Jeff was coming out the next match, and they're wheeling him out, and Jeff goes, "He's blue. He's gone. He has to be."
Yep.
And like I said,
how do you? Okay, so think about that. How do you do that after you just watch one of your friends get wheeled by and you're thinking he's dead?
It's part of being a professional. You have to.
But
it's not like you're going to the same town where he passed away. You're in that. You're in 16 by 16 ring, that little square.
Yeah. But I mean, it's what those guys do. I mean, it's.
But as you said with that footballer, that thank goodness he survived last year. If that happens today in wrestling or even football, you cancel it, or do you just take it away?
Think about that. You kind of think about that though, because I mean, there've been wrestlers like Ted DiBiase's dad died.
Yeah.
Dory Funk Sr. died. I mean,
Rey Mysterio did that to someone too. Not his fault.
Yeah.
He did the 619, hit him in the head, and he collapsed and he died in the ring. I was thinking about 4 or 5 years ago now.
Really?
Yeah.
It was before he came back to WWE the last time.
I tell you, I used to love boxing as a kid, and I remember watching Ray Boom Boom Mancini.
Boom Mancini, I remember.
It was on ABC. It was like Wild World of Sports. He killed the guy. It did something to me that I can't watch it today.
Well, he didn't die in the ring, but he went a coma.
It killed him though. He killed him.
Yeah. But that was at that age too, where the Rocky movies and referees now, especially after that, would not let that get to that point anymore. That's why they clamp down on it, because of stuff like that. But okay, number 1, and I know it's going to be a shocker for
numero uno.
Oh, this is the one I thought your number 4 was going to be your number 1, so I'm going to be surprised.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was your number 4, Stevie?
Scott Hall.
Okay.
No, Worden knows who my number 1 is. And
oh yeah, definitely.
I'm representing right here.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see it. Yeah.
Double A.
JJ Dillon.
Yeah, JJ Dillon. Yeah. After some of the War Games matches JJ was in, I don't think JJ wants to. And even after that night, Nikita and Dusty beat the crap out of him.
He'd rather work in a prison. It's safer.
Yeah, but yeah, Double A, the enforcer.
Double A.
And,
I'm kind of surprised. We kept going up to 5, and there's obviously one missing on our list, on your list. It's missing on my list too.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that one would have been on the list, but I won't say anything because Jack, it may be on Jack's list. But I was thinking, is Double A going to be on there? So sure enough, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, he got what, like you talk about Scott Hall getting one title shot. I think Arn actually got one title shot against Barry Windham for the NWA championship. And even that was just a setup for Flair to go after Wyndham.
Wyndham had the title, right? Didn't he win the NWA title?
Wyndham had it for a short while.
10 pounds of gold.
Right.
I was thinking, oh yeah, Wyndham was like, no, he was a champion. Okay, that's right.
He won it right before Flair came back from WWF.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Flair and Arn were babyface. And then that's when they had Pretty Paul Roma as one of the 4 horsemen. And I don't care what they say. He
might as well have Barry Horowitz on there.
He was the worst horseman ever.
That's a talking point.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I would say Sid Vicious is the worst horseman.
Yeah.
Of all time.
Mm.
Yeah, we need to go back. Sorry, pal, we're live when he was doing that promo.
Well, I mean, Sid.
You got to hate Sid Vicious because he stabbed your boy Arn.
Sid's got half the brain that you do, like he said that night. Oh, I've got half the brain you do, when he was talking to Hall and Nash that night in that promo. But
Sid was all. He should have been just talk. He should have been all muscle and no talk. He should have been like Lesnar.
Just shut up. Yeah, shut up.
Just let other people talk for you, because
but Arn did it all. Arn won what, TV championships? Probably, if not the best, one of the best tag team wrestlers of all time.
He was American champion. Because Ole held like the national, and he held the American title. I remember that.
No, it's a TV title.
Was the TV title?
Yeah, it was a TV title.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
The best spine buster in the game too. My God.
Do you guys ever listen to this podcast?
No, not his.
He talks about when him and Tully went to WWF, and Tony Schiavone had gone to WWF at the time too. He didn't stay there long, but Tony Schiavone knew from the days when he was in the NWA that was called the Spine Buster. And for some reason, in WWF, they wouldn't call it. They would never say Spine Buster. They said that Anderson kind of move. That Anderson move. That signature Anderson move, and it ticks Arn Anderson off. He's like, he knows exactly what you call that move. But yeah, the Spine Buster. He had the Gourd Buster, but man, the guy could flat out wrestle. And
I remember with him too I remember when he first started out and how young and green he was. He eventually became the best wrestler, probably next to Tully in the 4 Horsemen. I mean, Flair did the same moves all the time, but Arn Anderson was definitely the muscle for that.
And he was the one that came up with the term the 4 Horsemen.
Yeah. I
mean, he said in an interview that day, the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and Tony Schiavone said, yes, you got something there. And right now he holds a trademark. He's got the trademark for the 4 Horsemen. So, but yeah,
I'm sure Lars will be sending him an email.
Yeah. Arn was just, it still is and can cut such a great promo. One of my favorites is, I'm not one to toot my own horn, but toot. It was just so funny.
I think out of the Horsemen, I liked him and Flair the most. I never really liked Tully. I always thought Tully was an ass.
Look,
Flair and Arn were probably my 2 favorite.
I sent, and I'm pretty sure it was Tully's official Facebook at the time, and I sent him a message. I said, man, I hated you when I was a kid. And his response back was, I was shocked when I got a response back about a month later. He was like, good, that means I did my job then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but yeah, Arn, I mean, doesn't get enough credit. They called him the enforcer for a reason.
Yeah.
He took care of
So
Flair.
what happened to him? Why did he end his career? He got hurt somehow, right?
He had some issues with his arm and his neck.
Gotcha.
He said he was lifting weights and couldn't feel it one day, and he had to drop it. And the doctors told him that if he kept on, he was going to eventually,
Paralyzed.
But I'll tell you this: one of the most impressive things I saw was WrestleMania 18, Flair and Undertaker, and Arn sneaks down to the ring and gives the Undertaker a heck of a spine buster.
Easily his top 5 spine, but he came from under the ring, did he? No, from the crowd or something.
He got down. He came down to ringside because they did one of his shows, and Brock was talking about he was up in one of the luxury boxes watching as a kid, and he saw a little. He said, "I saw a little. It looked like a little ant figure going out to the ring." And all of a sudden, I look up on the monitor, and there he is giving the Undertaker a spine. I was like, "That's my dad." He said, "That's kind of when it hit me that."
That was timed so well because he kind of struggled to get in a little bit in the ring. I thought he was going to miss it, but he got Taker up.
That's right.
Picked him up. Boom.
Yeah. So Arn now is no longer with AEW or Brock.
Yeah.
Brock
It's not either. Yeah.
And Arn had been waiting around, I guess, to see what they were going to do with Brock's, and now Arn is no longer with AEW. So we'll see where he ends up. Hopefully somewhere soon.
If he comes to WWE, he's going to have to change his name.
It's not going to be WWE.
You don't think so?
Maybe
TNA.
I think the bridges have been burned so much with WWE and Arn. I think it's going to have to be in TNA or something like that.
Yeah, because he got let go. He was with WWF for a while.
Do what?
He was with WWF as an agent for a while.
Yeah, and the way he got let go was not good. It was not Arn's fault, and
plus you don't have the old man running the show anymore. Triple H is there, so you never know.
Yeah.
Well, Triple H is not. I mean, he's a fan of Arn, so
he wanted Edge to stay, evidently, but Edge just said he wanted to do that with AEW.
Yeah.
Because they finally took McMahon out of creative. They endowed
God
whoever does. So
thank God. All right, so Worden, you're number one.
My number one, and I have this, and I'm kind of surprised. There's one missing on here that not on Stevie's list or my list. Mine's a repeat. It's how was my? Oh yeah, duh. It's like we already talked about him, Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yep.
I was a fan of his when he was in World Class down here with the Von Erichs.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Mid-South, and he was in a tag team with a guy named Lord Humongous, which I think was Sid Vicious or somebody. He wore a Jason hockey mask. He was called Lord Humongous. I think there were a couple instances. I think Sid Vicious was one of them, and then some other guy was, but they were like the tag team champions.
Big.
Huh?
The other guy, I can't remember his name, but he never really made it big.
Yeah, but he was big with Jake. They were like a great tag team. And I just remember Jake he was actually a good guy down here. And he had a good run as a good guy up there, but it was never the same. When he did that thing against Rick Rude, I guess, with his wife or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And you talk about the Wrestler movie. I mean, that's Jake Snake's life right there. A lot of that was based.
Do you think it's based on him?
I see it. I mean, it could have been based on a lot of them, like Ric Flair never knowing when to give up, and a lot of them. But I that story he did with DDP with his redemption. That's a great story. But I liked him when he was in AEW. That was pretty cool. But that kind of fell away. But he could still cut a promo though. But Jake was my favorite. Some guy that should have won the title. I think he could have won it when he was a good guy. I mean, hell, he had Alice Cooper come in the ring with him.
Because he didn't even win the IC title either, did he?
No.
See, not even that.
He won I think he won the tag team titles in Mid-South with him.
Yes.
That was it.
He was big in Georgia because he was actually in the original Legion of Doom. Paul Ellering had with the Road Warriors, him and his
behind his dark side of the ring's pretty fucked up.
Yes. Not quite as bad as Marty Jannetty's, but
I haven't watched that one.
I don't know. Like Jake's life, especially for what his father and grandfather and mother. I mean, that's rough.
Yeah.
But Marty Jannetty, I don't know what to believe.
That was his own choices, though.
Yes.
Marty Jannetty's got some issues, bud. You ever follow him?
That was the best thing to get rid of Shawn Michaels. That's probably the best thing that happened to Shawn Michaels is them breaking away. Because I think he probably would have dragged Shawn Michaels down.
Definitely. I mean,
you know when they break up a team and sometimes you think, oh, they pushed the wrong guy. Like they did the best thing.
That was one of the best. That's next to the Hogan turn. That's one of the best heel turns.
Yeah.
And that heel turn was here in San Antonio where he's from.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they did the opposite and pushed Marty? What they did, Shawn?
I just think Shawn just had more shit together. I think when they got in trouble, a lot of it sounds like it was Marty. Like, because they were up in WWF for a while and they got kicked, they got fired.
Yeah, if you watch the Dark Side, a lot of the times, like Shawn wanted to go home and Marty's like, no, let's go out. And then Shawn's like 20 drinks deep. So it was always Marty who's Marty the partier.
Yeah, Marty the partier. And then the whole thing with, I think Marty had contacted WCW without asking Shawn when they were still the Rockers.
Yeah.
And he was like, what are you doing? I'm not going anywhere. And anyway, but his social media accounts are pretty wild if you follow him on Twitter.
Apparently he doesn't have social media.
He hasn't rehabilitated himself like Shawn, huh?
Look, Tony Schiavone on his podcast, one of their segments they do is reading Marty Jannetty's Twitter. And it is hilarious to hear them do that. But yeah. All right. We're down to the last one.
Jack, you're number one.
Should I mix it up a little bit? No, I'm going to go with someone who one of my top 5 favorite wrestlers of all time, and we've spoken about him twice already. It's going to be the trifecta of wrestlers, and that's Scott Hall. It's just a shame that he never became a world champion. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes, especially in WCW. Not even one, because if he won it, then every original NWO member won the title. And it just never happened. How? I don't know. But maybe he was too much of a nice guy backstage.
X-Pac never did.
No, I'm just talking about the original, just the first 3.
Oh, those 3, okay.
Yeah.
But maybe he was just such a great guy backstage, and I said, Scott, we're gonna give it to you. Scott's like, you know what? I don't need it.
But
I think his biggest thing was his best friend, Kevin Nash. I think when Vince McMahon saw Kevin Nash, he fell in love with that. That's his type of wrestler.
Yeah.
And he just pushed Scott Hall to the side. I think Scott Hall would have done it if it weren't for Kevin Nash. But I could be wrong. I don't want to.
No, it's a fair thing. Like, what if Kevin never went to WCW?
Yeah. Made more Ninja Turtle movies.
Yeah.
Shredder, Super Shredder. Here's the thing that I don't get though. We talked a little bit about when I was talking about him earlier about when he was Big Scott Hall in AWA. Why in the wide world of sports would you put the title on him in the AWA? He had the look, and they liked.
Because Kurt Hennig was there, that's why.
No, but Kurt Hennig didn't get the belt till after Scott Hall left.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because Nick Bockwinkel was there.
Yeah, I mean, freaking Nick Bockwinkel. I'm sorry, God rest his soul, and he was.
That's Vern Gagne. That's Vern Gagne's what he did, though.
But you got Nick Bockwinkel.
I agree.
Looking like he's 60 years old. And first thing the AWA messed up, they could have had, and me and Jack talked about this. I was telling Jack about this earlier in the week. They could have had Hulkamania there.
Mm-hmm.
If they put the belt on Hogan, but no, they kept it on Bockwinkel.
It wouldn't have been the same without Vince. I'm sorry.
I mean, I know that, but you had.
Oh, I know.
Crowd was getting into the whole Hulk Hogan thing in AWA.
I agree.
But
it wouldn't have been as big without Vince, I think.
You put it on freaking, let's see, Bockwinkel had it. Stan Hansen had it. Rick Martel had it, but not Scott Hall.
That's why they went under. They didn't make the best decisions.
Exactly. That's why you go under.
Wasn't Orndorff up there too for a while? But I think what the AWA had the biggest thing is that people didn't like because it was too damn cold. I mean, you got New York, but you got Minnesota. I mean, New York, it's the Big Apple. Minnesota, who wants to go up there?
You know where the AWA was?
Yeah, it was like very cold.
How didn't they succeed though when they had a deal with ESPN that showed?
Exactly. Because they rather put people like Buddy Rose out
Buddy
there.
Rose and Doug Summers are the tag team champions. And Pennachio, if you look them up,
Rock and Roll Buck Zumhoff, that a winner that guy was.
Yeah, he's locked up in the same cell as Steve Cornell. But
damn. I'd take
Rockers. They had the Midnight Rockers there. Before they were the Rockers. And
who was that weird looking Russian dude?
Boris Zukov.
What was up with that head, man? I was talking about a bald head.
He was actually in Mid-Atlantic. He was like Private Terry Daniels.
Then you had one of the top guys was a bad guy. He was pro apartheid, Colonel De Beers.
He had the big feud with Jimmy Snuka.
Hell, they had Slaughter at one time too.
Yeah,
they had a lot of people there. But another thing that hurt AWA was nepotism. He would put the belt on his son.
His like 15-pound son.
Yeah, Greg Gahn going up against.
He's going to go against Hawk from the Road Warriors. Yeah, he's going to win.
And then they had the Road Warriors there.
Wow. Freebirds.
The Road Warriors were the AWA tag team champions, and then they take it off and put it on Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal. That was the team that beat the Road Warriors. So, but yeah, so that's our top 5 wrestlers that never won a world.
I'm really, really surprised that there's one big omission that almost made my list.
Oh, I've got some.
We got honorable mentions.
But I think this is the biggest one though. I think
who?
Piper.
I had it. He was close.
I
could have swapped him. I could have swapped him for Jake.
Yeah, Piper's like, I don't know. He's kind of like DiBiase and Flair for me. He's gone down in my personal, I guess, feelings about him.
Yeah.
Because of the crap he did, like when he went after Stone Cold, that stuff he did right before he died. I mean, it just sucks that he didn't make it up, but man, he got crazy at the end. But I mean, you talk about somebody that, Hogan tried to make the movies. Piper was one that really, I think, him and then another one, Ventura, Jesse Ventura, probably more known for their movies than they are for their wrestling career. But there was nobody bigger than Piper when he was a heel in the mid 80s, like with WrestleMania and stuff like that. It wouldn't have worked with Hogan and T without Piper and Orndorff, especially Piper.
All right. So are we going to do some of the honorable mentions, or we're going to save them?
Save them.
Save them?
Make them wait.
I
will say one, though. I was close because it won't make it, but Dustin Rhodes. Add Dustin.
Yeah, Dustin, yeah. I would say Piper and Ventura. Ventura is one of my kind of my favorite. He did a lot for the color commentary stuff.
Yes.
Well, there was 2 others we talked about, but I won't mention them because we're going to save them for.
We can do. I mean, we already mentioned them. You can mention them.
I said one. Jay said one. You can say one.
Yeah.
Okay. What about Tully?
Yeah, I always look at Tully as a tag team guy. I kind of look at him like they do as Arn, but I get your thing with Arn too.
Yeah. Tully won. Tully had TV championships. Tully had national championships. Tully had U.S. championship.
World tag team.
The only thing he didn't win was that world belt, a little bit better than Arn as far as what belts he won. But
he had he was down here. His dad, of course, ran the Southwest Championship Wrestling, and he was tag teams with another guy that Gino Hernandez, who, Jack, if you never heard of Gino, you ought to Google him. Yeah, Gino. I remember the day he died. And it killed me because I remember it was the Flair Chris Adams and him. He had like blinded Chris Adams with the. It's like, oh my God, did Chris Adams kill him? And just crap like that, man. But there's just something about for every Flair and Hogan you got to have a Razor Ramon. You got to have a Arn Anderson. You got to have that person that puts that champion over. I mean, Ronnie Garvin, should he have ever had the title? No. I would have put it on Arn Anderson before, turned on Flair, went after, and won the title instead of Ronnie Garvin. I would have done it if I booked it. So.
Well, the rumor is that Garvin wasn't the first one they approached about that belt, about carrying the belt, being the transitional champion.
Who was it?
Ricky Morton. There's a picture.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's a picture of Morton holding the belt backstage where he won the belt, but they told him that if he was going to keep the belt, they would have to split the Rock and Roll Express up, and Morton wouldn't do it.
Mm.
He I don't know which podcast he was on, Ricky Morton. Maybe it was Flair or something, and Flair always asked him, why didn't you do that? And he said he always felt an obligation to Robert.
He was on Jazz one time.
Was it because
it might have been Jericho's podcast?
Yeah.
Robert wouldn't have had the career without Ricky.
Yeah.
Robert was one that didn't have the mic skills for sure. I mean, if it was downright uncomfortable to watch Robert try to talk on the microphone. And Clash of Champions 2, you want to see a funny moment? Clash of Champions 2, the return of the Rock and Roll Express, they left and came back, and they're getting introduced, and they're at ringside, and Robert's walking, about bust his ass right there in front of the national television. I mean, like, oh my gosh! But there's a lot we could talk about, with these guys, Rock and Roll Express, stuff like that. Do profiles, episodes of certain ones, and talk about it. But tonight has been a good night for the Triple Threat main event, the debut episode. Before we go, though, if you're local to me, and these guys are not local to me, so they won't be there, next Saturday.
Stevie's stripping.
No. That would be a worldwide event there. Next Saturday at Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, where you got the Rage Wrestling Warriors. They return to Roanoke Rapids, and I'll be there at ringside filming. Just to tell you the card, so the three main matches of the Genesis Lightweight Championship, or Cruiserweight, whatever you want to call it. Wes Rogers versus champion Austin Shadows. Then you got the tag team championship match. It's a three-way match with Dos Legit versus the Geordie Bulldogs.
Dos Legit, I like that.
Versus Radical City Kings.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
So then the heavyweight championship, Dirty Money defends against Dwayne Allen. So bell time is 7:00.
Who's Dirty Money?
You're thinking of Beer Money.
No, I'm thinking of something else. Who is it?
He's a independent guy. He's up in the Washington D.C. area.
I know Beer Money. Dirty Money does sound familiar though. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever been on like any main show, thing like that.
Maybe I've heard it on like a wrestling podcast.
Are you going to be out? Are you going to be out with the bikini, Steve, and talk about the different rounds?
Of course.
Hold the sign.
The UFC girl, the Stevie girl.
That's what I do every show, though. What are you talking about?
Well, that's how they get them. That's how they get the crowd sold out, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, bring that in there, bud.
Yeah.
But if you want floor tickets, they're $15. Adults, $10. Children, $5. But be sure to be there for a good charity. It's a charity event for the Christmas for Kids that the Roanoke Rapids Police Department put on. This is a yearly thing now. So I will be there ringside. I've only missed one.
When is it?
It is next Saturday night.
Saturday night.
If you're going to fly down,
I'll be waiting for you in the ring, brother.
Yeah, Ray usually puts on a really good show.
What? No, Captain Insano, dude. What the hell?
Captain Insano.
He came back.
He did come back. Yeah, Tony Khan paid all that money for him to be out there on a float in the water.
Yeah. Speaking about wrestling, you guys been watching Wrestlers on Netflix?
Yes, I have
No, it's
not
not good.
seen it
What's that?
yet.
What? No, it's
Based
I
on
can see it.
OVW.
Ohio
Okay.
Valley Wrestling. Al
It's
Snow
good.
is part owner.
Really
of it.
good.
I check that out. That's
Yeah,
why
I
he
think
was
it's-
on. He was on a podcast. I think Chris Jericho's right, Al Snow.
Yeah, he was.
Yep.
He was. He's been on Jericho's. He was on Busted Open too.
Okay.
And guys, there's another show we need to get behind a little bit. Hopefully, it will get picked up. I don't know if you guys watched it or not. Heels, which was on Stars, had 2 seasons, and Stars pretty much told them, we're not going to bring you back this year, even though they were talking about the ratings were down for it, but they couldn't promote it because of the writers' strike and all this stuff. So, but if you have not watched Heels, give it a chance. It's a wrestling family, independent scene, but it's not real life. I mean, it's not like a reality show. It's I guess like a Friday Night Lights. Compare that to football,
Okay.
but it ended the season finale it left a lot hanging, and I hate to see something like that.
That sucks though, because the strike's over. So
yeah, and it's a good show. It's got some guys you would recognize. CM Punk and was actually on there. James Harrison from the Steelers played a wrestler the first season.
well, that's enough reason for me not to watch
exactly because no Cowboy would make it. But
yeah, they'd drop it before they wouldn't make it to the ring. They'd fall down.
They drop it all right, just like they do the passes. They got there. But anyway,
That's what I'm hoping happens this weekend because my Rams go up against Cowboys.
Pennachio is a Rams fan, so
I don't bet on them. So I just
everybody's going.
I'm a long time fan. I'll always be a Cowboy fan, but I'm the one that makes the most fun of them than anybody. I'm not one of these delusional. Oh, this is our year. Right.
There's a bunch of them out there, bud. There's a bunch.
I've been lucky enough to see my baseball, my basketball, my college football, all my teams win. So if I never again, hey, I had a good run. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Is it your Texas team playing in the baseball now?
What's that?
Rangers.
Rangers, is that your team?
No, I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan, but I'm pulling for the Rangers. They're losing right now, though.
Yeah.
They have all these ex Cardinals on there. It's like, man, that says a lot right there.
Yep.
Oh God, they'll definitely lose now.
It was 12 years ago the night they won, Stevie. Whatever. Against the Rangers. The Rangers.
How long ago was
the Orioles choking in the first round?
Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you that though? I told you when you said something. The Orioles are going.
Well, they were the best, one of the best teams in the American League.
I tell you, experience in the playoffs.
But everybody asked me because I watch baseball. I was like, well, hell, I picked the Astros and the freaking the Orioles, and I picked the Orioles and the Braves. They both out.
Number 1 seeds. That whole format that they've got now, where you get a week off if you're the number 1 seed. That's a long time in baseball.
There's talk about them splitting up the divisions. They need to do that.
Yeah. That is a long time to be off in baseball for the whole week, especially that late in the year.
Yeah, and you can't really count against the Arizona Cardinals, man. They got John McCain. The spirit of John McCain got them or something because they should not be there.
You talking about the Diamondbacks, right?
I say the Arizona Cardinals. Well, that would really be a good match. Arizona Cardinals against.
Yeah, they would really have the spirit of John McCain if the Cardinals made it.
No, he was a Diamondbacks fan too. So
yeah, I remember. All right, any last words, guys?
Hey, it's fun. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, we need to plan out. This may not be an every week thing. This may be a
quit being such a wuss, Stevie. Come on.
A bi-weekly thing, like twice
bi-monthly, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Bi-fortnightly.
I say bi-weekly. I'm talking like I'm an Arizona Cardinal.
Bye, Felicia.
Bi-monthly. But what time is it there now, Pennachio?
Right now, it's 1:45 Sunday afternoon.
So, don't tell us what happens.
Yeah.
No, don't worry about it.
But, when I saw that whole Y2K thing, it's like, okay, we're good.
Yeah, we made it through first, so we're fine.
So before we go, guys, talk about some podcasts we listen to. I've mentioned a couple already that I listen to as far as wrestling goes. The Arn Anderson podcast is good. He's if you go right now, he's going like month by month of his wrestling career. I think they're in 1993. So he has maybe about 3 or 4 more years to go. But
Busted Open's good.
What Happened When with Tony Schiavone, the voice of your childhood. That was good. You tell I was definitely a Crockett guy. I listened to a lot of that, but I will listen to Bruce Pritchard on Something to Wrestle With. That's 3 of them that I'll listen to. What about you, Pennachio? I know you listen. I know one you listen to for sure because you've got the billboard for it on you right now.
Yeah. So of course, they're about 3 to 4 hours long. You got the Jim Cornette Experience and Drive Through.
What's the difference there?
Sorry?
About 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. What's the difference between the drive-through and the experience? What is supposed to be the difference?
So the drive-through reviews Monday to Wednesdays wrestling.
Okay.
And Experience does like your SmackDown weekend stuff.
Okay.
And
I always wondered what the difference was.
I think the Experience, he also includes pay-per-views if there's a pay-per-view on.
Okay.
I really love 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff.
Right.
Big one. Click This, of course, with Kevin Nash. But if you really want to have a laugh with wrestling,
I know which one you're going to say.
Oh, You Didn't Know podcast. Oh my God, man. I cried.
What's the name of it?
The
Oh, You Didn't Know.
You didn't know.
Oh, okay.
Him and Cassio Kid, man. I no joke. I cry in laughter. They're only about 90 minutes. It takes me 3 hours. I'm just rewinding and rewinding. But yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think they get a little help with the laughter there, but I may be wrong. But yeah, I actually am trying to catch up on some of them because you sent me the part where he read your
comment,
comment up there, and he got your name right. Believe it or not.
Yeah, for a Southern man, he did well.
Yeah, he got his name right the first time. It's better than some people have because the first time I saw it, I was like, "What the heck is that name?" But
there's a lot of wrestling podcasts out there.
Yeah,
They're my main ones. The Conrad Thompson ones I like.
The 300 he co-host or what?
Yeah, Grilling JR is good. Lately, they've been playing a lot. You guys may remember.
He did
his call.
I used to call into that show.
Yeah,
back in the early '90s. Jim Ross did a Sunday night thing that I could pick up every once in a while on AM radio. But it was a show where he started off. The bad thing was he started off and it was WCW because he was still working there.
Yes. Yep.
And then he still had the contract with that. So because this is an Atlanta radio station, and when he went to WWE, he just started bringing the WWE guys on there. And it was but he was still playing like Michael Hayes doing the promos that. If you want to hear the best at wrestling, you listen right here to Jim Ross. And Sting, he had a Sting went up there the other day. Yeah, he's been playing. I've enjoyed that because I've listened to a lot of them.
Yeah.
And actually, there was some nights I had to get in my car and listen to it because the car I couldn't pick it up on my regular radio, but it would pick it up in the car. And I
like when they have
through. I'm waiting to maybe one day hear me up there because I got through once up there.
Yeah. I like when they have like a heel co-host and like a little kid will call up and he'll like, your question's shit, go to bed, next.
Terry Taylor, that when he wanted to be called Terrence.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah.
And all these kids were calling in going, hey, Terry. And he was like, Terrence. And every one of them and they were doing it on purpose. Hey, Terry, Terrence.
Click.
Yeah. But then they had one the other day with did you hear I don't know if you listened to one with the Wizard. It was Bruce Pritchard.
It was Bruce.
Yeah, it was Bruce Pritchard. And he was talking about how stupid the people in West Virginia were. And I was like, oh, okay.
But some little kid called and goes, aren't you Bruce? He goes, no, I'm the Wizard. Don't you listen?
That kid was pretty smart to figure out with Bruce Pritchard back then.
I thought it was at first. I'm like, that sounds like
you think about it, back then, nobody knew who Bruce Pritchard was. I mean, Brother Love. Bruce Pritchard was.
I feel so left out. I don't really listen to wrestling podcasts.
You do. You listen to Jericho's.
Well, he doesn't really have a lot of wrestlers on there. And kind of when he does, I don't really listen to him. When he has like a rock star on, maybe I do.
Yeah.
One of my favorite podcasts is not a wrestling thing, but you're going to be kind of shocked that I actually like this guy. I like New Heights with the Kelsey brothers. I think Jason is a cool dude, even though he plays for the enemy. And I like Travis. But but football and
Hey,
busted open. I like busted open. That's probably my go-to,
you
especially
playing?
after a pay-per-view.
Isn't that the Taylor Swift football team?
Yeah, are you playing with a blank space now, Ward?
What?
We're gonna have bad blood because you're gonna have a blank space for long.
They had that shit yesterday that Travis was at the World Series. I was like, why is he there without Taylor? Because he's got a goddamn life too, man.
She was probably had to do something that night. That's why he went with her.
Yeah, she's
She's the richest woman in America, dude.
It's funny how
but
I was watching the game against Kansas City last week and they had Jim Nance there talking to Tony Romo, like talking about the Kelsey thing. It's like, yeah, I lived that, dude. Don't you remember with Jessica Simpson?
Jessica Simpson, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so they're talking about tomorrow. The Kansas City Denver game might be like
snowed out. Yeah.
Snow.
Oh wow. Where at in Denver?
Denver.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I wonder if Taylor's going to be there for that.
No, she's like in Europe on her. She got to do her Europe tour.
Oh, because Denver's an open stadium, isn't it?
Yep.
She's
on her tour. You know where's she going to be at? Where's she at tonight?
She's going somewhere across the seas, and they're going, and he's going to Germany. I guess that game they're going to have in Germany in a couple of weeks.
I'm sure she'll go up there. But anyway,
I don't know. My thing on the Taylor Swift thing, I don't care. I don't hate her. I'm not a fan of her music. I don't hate her. She pays bonuses out to her staff.
Oh, I don't have a problem.
That's great. She's a woman that writes her own song. She's a great inspiration for little girls. I mean, it's like you want her like Nicki. Your daughter's doing Nicki Minaj. Come on.
Yeah.
And what she sings.
I'm the same.
About.
I'm just not a fan.
I mean, I don't hate her, but I mean, I
don't
music.
hate her. I don't dislike her. I'm just tired of seeing her on football.
I am a fan of Travis, though. I thought he did great on Saturday Night Live. I thought he's a great football player, and it's like Jason was giving a bunch of shit. It's like, damn, had they compared your numbers to when she's at the stadium and she's not at the stadium?
Yeah, Andy Reid said she can come as long as she wanted.
And Jason and Travis Kelce's, I mean, he's a hell of a tight end, man. I mean, he's a great player.
You can see Pat Mahomes' wife starting to get cranky now because she's starting to.
Is she getting
She's in the back now.
She's in the background now.
You watch the quarterback show?
If anybody should anybody should not like somebody, it should be Mahomes' brother. That guy's a creep.
Definitely.
I didn't know how bad he was until I saw that quarterback's TV show on Netflix.
Have you watched that, Ward?
No.
Netflix. You need to watch that.
I want to watch that. I want to watch that Kelsey on Amazon about Jason.
You'll really think he's creepy if you watch a quarterback's thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, on that uplifting note.
Yeah. How did we get talking about Taylor Swift? And
because I don't listen to wrestling podcasts.
Taylor Swift makes it into every conversation, I guess.
I do listen to Jim Cornette's podcast a lot.
Yeah.
But even he gets a little too political for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with a lot of what he says, but I mean, he's just a little. I don't need to hear that crap all the time. It's like I'd rather hear more about wrestling. But it's his podcast, and it's your podcast. You can do what you want.
Another episode we could do about Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express.
Yeah, falling off and breaking his leg.
Big Bubba, Ray Traylor, Big Boss Man, whatever you want to call him, the Guardian, the Boss. How many different names are you going to go by, buddy?
He was a world champion, wasn't
he? UWF.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he was.
He wrestled in the suit.
He beat One Man Gang before One Man Gang went to WWF. Then he lost to Dr. Death.
One Man Gang.
He came from being a jobber on TBS.
Did he act like he was black or something? Boy, imagine that happens today.
That was One Man Gang, yeah.
Can you imagine that? And that Slick, he's like a minister now. Jesus.
What
was that tag team? They called themselves like
Hakeem
Twin Towers.
Twin Towers,
yeah.
Well, that wouldn't go over either.
Not now, especially
Yeah, we need to do a Where Are They Now wrestling. That'd be a good thing.
Slick is actually
you need a minister?
A family. We talked about Rufus R. Jones earlier. Slick is Rufus R. Jones' son.
Oh, really?
Yes. That's how he got into business.
Just don't ask where Virgil is. He'll probably charge you $50 to ask.
Virgil or Vincent.
Yeah, Virgil's like Gene Simmons, except people pay for the Gene Simmons
You know,
part. Right?
it's
Yeah.
bad. It's bad when you're a pawn in both federations against, your name is used in both federations against the other guy. Like Virgil, Dusty Rhodes' real name was Virgil Runnels. Vincent Kennedy McMahon. I mean, so yeah, they just took shots at each other through him. But anyway. All right, guys, that's going to do it for tonight for the first episode of the Triple Threat main event. Next time, look, we're going to do these like every once in a while. It's not,
We'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, it is
the
tomorrow.
Monday night main event or Sunday night main event for you.
Yeah, so we'll have these on from time to time. Hopefully.
Don't call us; we'll call you.
Exactly. And but you guys be thinking about what you want to do next, because I'm up for,
throw some ideas and
get some ideas out there. But that's going to do it for tonight. After a almost 3 hour long, I think we about got to 3 hours. You jinxed it earlier, Worden.
But that was 4 hours. We did the top 10.
Yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for tonight, and we'll see you guys next time on the Triple Threat main event.
thank you.